Two people lie on the bed, completely lost in the night, so exhausted they've lost the energy for anything else. The girl with the beautiful scarlet hair is the first to open her eyes and sit up. She calmly looks at the man who continues to sleep. The protagonist of the novel, The Cursed Emperor, is named Frederick Leifridge. He is the leader of the Secret Knights, High Kryn, and the crown prince of the Leifridge Empire known to all. The maiden can't believe she spent the night with this very young man. As she expected, the union of their bodies was magical. The young man said all he needed was a woman's body, and she seemed grateful, even though she knew His Majesty had a difficult personality. The beauty can't decide which one she liked best. Perhaps she should ignore what happened and simply try to clear her head, which is already too full. If only Derek had been the young lady's type, she would surely have lost her mind over such a handsome face. It's no secret that the hero is incredibly handsome from his face to his body, and even has some qualities that aren't the most terrifying. If the lady knew she was about to swap bodies with someone, she'd be furious. This is what the young man will surely feel the next morning because the heroine reaches her foot toward the toes of the prince lying next to her. It all worked. The brunette opened her eyes sharply, looking around and realizing that all that remained was to complete her mission and rest. The girl knew this would happen, but the strange feeling still lingered somewhere inside. The young man's body is brimming with the strength and energy the main character so desperately lacked. She'd like it to stay that way forever, but it won't work. Rumors about the crown princess's choice have begun to spread, and that can't be allowed to happen or it will cause a lot of trouble. Looking at the sleeping body next to him, Derek smiled. The girl looked incredibly wonderful. Her soft curls flowed over her shoulders and her eyelashes twitched gently in the dream she was dreaming. The beauty had lived in this body for 15 years, but she still hadn't gotten used to seeing this face. Diva is the youngest daughter of Earl Chandler and is said to be the most beautiful in the Empire. Her name is Irenia Chandler. Just 15 years ago, the girl was an ordinary student with no entertainment options. The woman took 6-year-old Irene's body for herself. It was incredible from the start, and she couldn't understand how it had all been accomplished, even if she was happy with what she had gotten. Moans come from the bed. The girl rolls over, obviously frightened, but the boy smiles, thinking that Derek should be sleeping soundly instead of what's happening. It's best not to move too much, otherwise Chandler's body will never be restored. She's a fragile girl, so rest is really important. This is just routine care. As she leaves the room, the lady takes one last look back, telling herself that a man must understand her feelings. It's not as if everything was done on a whim. The heroine has a reason for swapping bodies with the emperor and then escaping. In the novel The Cursed Prince, which sold for a whopping 19 gold pieces, the Leifridge Empire was at war with Elshin. The prince was sent as a hostage to the enemy country, and no one spared him. It was in that empire that a high-ranking mage cast a spell on a man, causing him to suffer. It wasn't broken until the arrival of the main character, with whom Frederick fell in love. Over time, the couple begins to get to know each other better and better. They have not only an emotional connection, but also a physical one because they must spend every night together enjoying and satisfying each other's desires. The heroine learned in advance that the entire Chandler clan was to be exterminated by order of the madman. Chandler, she didn't know how to change anything, so according to the plot, she simply died along with her innocent relatives. One day, Derek noticed something was wrong with the beauty's body. He called a doctor and asked for proper treatment. But unfortunately, Brother Cedric, under the guise of treatment, wanted to offer poisonous herbs that would destroy everything. Of course, it wasn't a disease, but a curse that persisted. Treatment with a small amount of poison is also practiced. Because of this, Leifridge lost his mind and ordered the entire family to be killed for treason. The family was murdered in a horrible way, and the lady remembers the feeling of standing and looking at the burning ruins of the estate from which only legends will remain that will never come to life. With her family's life at stake, the protagonist remembered a way to lift the emperor's curse. The method involved administering a magic potion that was supposed to be ready for 15 days. The maiden had prepared everything, but the problem remained. The man had suffered psychological trauma and couldn't tolerate magic. If the woman had explained the curse, she would have been simply killed. So there was only one option left: to take the body against her will. Of course, doing something like this is quite risky and best avoided, but the heroine realized she simply had no other choice. If she had taken the potion herself, everything would have been much better. It was difficult to pull off what was originally planned, but Irene tried her best to do everything necessary. As soon as the boy grew up, the beauty began trying to seduce him, constantly hovering around him, giving him no peace. The girl trembled before the young man every time and was a little afraid of what might happen next. But she continued walking anyway. He in turn ignored the lady and was rude to her. If the emperor had been kind, the heroine would have felt remorse for how she treated him, but he remained just as indifferent. This didn't change anything, so the girl decided not to dwell on it. Very soon, the lady will be able to fix everything, making it much better. She understands that she won't hear even a word of gratitude if she frees the young man from the curse. But that's not the most important thing, since the target was Frederick's body. The rain has finally stopped, and one of the servants finally announces it, coming closer and bowing. The royal bird has finally arrived, causing the young man to breathe a sigh of relief. Everything was done as it should be. The dark red ribbon signifies that someone from the royal family is in critical condition. And of course, it was all Irene herself who orchestrated the plan. There's only one person in critical condition who fits all the descriptions. It's the mother of the Liferidge Empire, Queen Eliza. She's one of the main characters in a novel the girl once read. Everything is going according to plan, but not for the man himself who has just woken up after a hot night. He gets out of bed, not quite understanding what's happening or what's wrong. Slowly walking further in front of the mirror, trying to stay on his feet, flashed through his mind like lightning. Before doing what was destined, the young man took a pill and gave the same to his girlfriend. It was better for both of them. Derek's behavior was simply ridiculous. He considered himself so high-ranking that he considered everyone around him beneath him. Chandler herself didn't want to have a child with a man who cared nothing. They usually say that if the remedy is good, then the result itself is not bad. And in this case, everything turned out to be true, because the girl was satisfied with how everything ended. The servant quietly goes into the room to speak with the future emperor. Count Chandler's daughter is still asleep, and this is reported almost immediately, so that everything is known. This is the work of those who live in the castle. The man asks what happened, to which the servant politely replies that he conveyed his wishes to the maids. Derek would likely respond just as coldly because that's who he is. There are no exceptions. The real character had previously asked for something to be passed on to his mistress. It was immediately clear what it was supposed to be, so the girl didn't even have to think too long. Frederick often gave gifts that his other girls wouldn't accept. He considered this normal, so he didn't notice, and the heroine pretended to be happy to receive such attention, though she remained cold inside. This time, the lady was also confident that the crown prince's maids had chosen something suitable as a gift. He usually never chose anything himself, considering it beyond His Highness's authority. Ironically, Liferidge himself will receive the gift, having found himself trapped in someone else's body. The man stands by the window, slamming his hand hard against the glass, trying to figure out what just happened. It can't be that Irene swapped bodies, and now he's in the young lady's body. The hero falls to the floor near the window, trying to curse the girl as much as he can for what she managed to pull off. The maids rush to the heroine's aid. One of them strokes the beauty's shoulders, covering her slightly and saying, she knows the prince isn't the most caring person. Another maid is outraged that the young man dared to abandon the girl after spending the night alone. The hero is terrifying in the eyes of others. No one around them even suspects they're talking to the crown prince himself, who frowns with displeasure, unable to say anything since he's in Chandler's body. After a night spent together, the boy woke up in bed completely alone. He examined his hands, wondering what the girl had managed to do to his body and why everything had suddenly changed so drastically. To add to the problems, the lady left the young man completely alone, unconcerned about what was happening. In his new body, the hero can't do anything, so his first priority is to avoid arousing suspicion. It's good that the maid knows Irene well, so things became a little easier. Asking the maid to leave the room, the lady justifies it by saying she wants to be alone for as long as possible. His body is completely weak, which makes the hero incredibly angry. He doesn't understand what Irene has been wanting all this time, because all this time she literally adored the prince, looking at him with loving eyes. The man wanted to propose to the lady, he even made all the arrangements, but in the end, nothing came of it. Most likely, the lady's original goal was to steal an innocent body. After the incident, Derek began looking in the mirror much more often. He studied the beautiful features of the girl he'd so deeply admired. When the maids asked what was wrong, he always replied that nothing out of the ordinary had happened. No matter how much Liefridge thought about it, he couldn't understand the lady's purpose in following him around. At the very beginning of their relationship, she showed no respect whatsoever, attempting to convey hostility. Then the beauty apparently changed her strategy because she began to smile as if she understood every word spoken to her. The young man thought the woman would accept his proposal because it would be beneficial for her family. Ultimately, Irene left her lover alone with his thoughts. She plays the role of a true prince very naturally. The girl is smart, so she planned everything so that the stranger's presence would be unnoticed. If the lady's goal is not to gain power, then to tell the story, we need to go back a long way. In the distant past, an enemy country attacked the state, raiding the homes of many citizens. A boy was given as a hostage to ensure the safety of many people. Of course, the baby didn't want to leave his country and go to the ends of the earth, but there was obviously no other choice. The one who handed the prince over to the enemy empire was the imperial couple themselves. The man promised not to make the same mistake again and sent the boy far away. They were family, which is the most important thing, but after this, they abandoned their son. The boy ended up with King Elson, who wouldn't leave him alone. First, he resorted to poison, then murder, kidnapping, and more. Almost every day, one of the servants died as a result of the monarch's tricks. It was then that the hero realized he had to become stronger to protect those he cared about. Derek was still very young, so he couldn't do much, but he promised himself he would change reality. Being strong meant becoming a tool to survive and not showing your true feelings, even if they were bursting out like crazy. After some time, Frederick allied himself with the enemies of the country where he was held hostage. This gave him many advantages, and together they managed to save many people who desperately needed it. The man gained greater strength, and he was able to awaken the legendary weapon, the dragon sword. He took command of the Black Wolf army and became invincible. The one who had left the empire as a hostage returned a great hero. At a party in honor of his triumphant return, which was celebrated by the entire empire, the young man met Irene, who was admired by everyone around, noticing how beautiful she was. The Rose of the Elite, Lady Chandler, that's what society called her. Many believed she was worthy of the world simply because of how she carried herself and how she presented herself to the aristocracy. This girl reminded Frederick of the scorching taste of wine which cools the mind and throat. When he first tried it, he was perplexed because the taste was wonderful, exuding a certain freedom. That day at the banquet, the beauty approached first to introduce herself. She knew the prince didn't need to know her name, which was already known, but she did what she had to anyway. It was an honor for a woman to welcome the sun of the empire, which shines brightly for all who need it. She behaved politely, trying to conceal her true intentions from the very beginning. Her noble face and captivating voice completely captivated him. If the beauty had been a novice, the prince might have enjoyed it. But as the heir to the throne, he saw the treachery lurking in her eyes. The man never managed to understand what the goal had been from the very beginning. He replayed their first meeting in his head over and over again, but was unable to construct a plot that would lead to a resolution. The girl is the youngest daughter of what was once the most influential family in the empire. She has it all: money, love, and fame, having been given everything possible since childhood. She never needed anything. Sometime later, the couple met again, but after the banquet, it began to rain in torrents and the lady ran closer, saying she wanted to take refuge from the storm in the palace. Looking at the floor, the heroine asked for warmth as she felt the cold coming from all sides. It was then that the man realized she wanted to become his woman, or rather the wife of the heir to this empire, as strange as that might sound. That day, the young man did nothing but leave smirking in irritation. From that day on, Irene began to appear frequently, even when Derek visited his brother at the palace. or strolled in the garden trying to check his thoughts and avoid rash actions. Chandler lacked tact and was too stubborn for anyone to tolerate. Each time the man turned away as if he didn't want to look at her, rejecting her, the lady continued to press, refusing to give in. They found themselves in a rose garden that looked simply wonderful. The girl said it had become her favorite spot, impossible to miss. She always wanted to admire the views with the crown prince. Smiling, the red-headed woman said that she hoped that the beauty of the place would calm the tired crown prince who was faced with too many problems from all sides at once. As expected, this man was smart. She knew the man's entire life had been a mess starting from childhood. So she decided to act this way, saying things like that and applying pressure. Little by little, the woman advanced toward the goal she had set. Over time, the young man decided to give her what she wanted and make her his wife. Chandler would support the future emperor, not try to seize all the power for himself. That's exactly what the young man now trapped in his lover's body had been thinking all along. Turning to Eve, the man asked her to send a message to the prince in the palace on behalf of Irene. No matter what they needed to talk, the maid didn't obey right away. She, like everyone else, was worried about her mistress, so she decided to ask her to rest first and then attend to all the other less important matters that could wait. Some maids are on the verge of tears because the lady's face seems too pale and her hands tremble. The best solution would be to rest in bed and take a bath. Her body is too weak to escape or even move freely. Irene has thought everything through in advance, so they're sending her to rest for at least a few days, which will already help significantly. It turned out the Empress was not ill. The castle received a red ribbon, which signifies trouble in the royal family. But it turned out the queen was strolling in the garden. According to the lady, the weather was perfect, so nothing could stop her from going there. It seems someone had decided to play with the bird, or it had wandered off to the estate on its own, despite the fact that it simply shouldn't have. The prince pretended to be lost in thought or perhaps even unsure what to do in such a situation. Fortunately, no one ever discovered that Irene's assistant was the one who sent the false letter. At least it's good that Her Highness is safe, otherwise it would have been extremely difficult to avoid problems. The lady has managed to enter the palace, but the hardest part is just beginning. Chandler knows she'll have to work hard to avoid being caught by Derek's men before she completes the curse therapy. Luckily, the girl knows the prince's behavior very well. She will behave naturally and won't do anything the future emperor himself wouldn't do. During her time with him, she was able to thoroughly study every aspect of his state and behavior. The layout of the heir's palace is also fairly well known. This will help you avoid looking like a lost rabbit in need of help. Keep your chin up and act even more confident. This is all because the lady has been following the man for a long time and because her second brother Ain works there. Of course, he wouldn't mind helping her achieve their shared goal, saving her own skin. Running into this man would be undesirable. It probably won't happen as Irene had planned the day in advance, so they wouldn't cross paths. But a lingering doubt and even fear will linger and won't go away until the mission is completed. Even when the heroine decided to swap bodies with Derek, she was still nervous. No one can predict how things will go, even if every detail has been taken into account. Derek had too much work to do, which the heroine who understood what she was getting into would now have to do herself. A week before everything happened, the lady noticed that the crown prince was completely immersed in work. He sat at his desk for hours, never even looking up so as to complete everything on time without any delays that would affect the work. Thanks to Ain, the girl understood exactly how Derek works and was able to draw a line of action for what needed to be done first. Sometimes she still worries about the actual state of affairs, as there could be many pitfalls. The Emperor's birthday banquet is coming up soon. So many questions about the event need to be answered. There couldn't have been a more opportune time for a body swap. The Marquis de Cherville was the only one who felt something wasn't quite right. The others didn't try to say anything, but this old man kept pushing forward, insisting that things needed to be done differently. As it turned out, the man simply wanted His Highness to rest because he noticed he wasn't getting enough sleep. If the prince was overtired, the Marquis wouldn't even dare stand nearby lest he disturb him. A hidden smile appeared on the young man's face, unseen by the others. Fortunately, the servant didn't notice, so the joy remained within. Irene breathed a sigh of relief and agreed to rest more. Before retiring to his quarters, the young man completely cleared his desk so as not to be ruined the next day and asked for a book. Its title was The Comedy and Tragedy of Empire by Sid Dayan. If the item isn't in the Imperial Library, she'll have to go to the market. This edition isn't available because the heroine wrote it herself, and she knows she'll have to go shopping and search diligently. Understanding that His Majesty is asking for a favor, the man nods and smiles. If it's truly important, then Cherville will visit all the shops and stalls to get what he's ordered. The search will only take a few hours. The beauty's assistant is already waiting at the market with the only remaining copy ready to deliver the book to the Marquise's servant. The man will then bring the item to the prince's office. Everything continues to go according to plan as there are only 15 days left before the spell wears off completely and the lady returns to her normal form. The mistress is going to do everything that is necessary as usual, but the maids talk about a mark that has appeared on her shoulder. The young man looks at his hand in surprise, noticing dark spots there. It's not easy to leave marks on his body, so he's surprised. Yesterday, a guy lost control due to desire. It turns out he was the only one who behaved this way, so now he regrets it. The maids curse the prince all day. It's no wonder they avoid him knowing he's too rude. Frederick believes he's the one being abandoned. Judging by the way everyone is fussing around tomorrow, the entire estate will be calling the heir a shameless monster who knows no bounds. The Count and his wife left the city to investigate, but rumors will certainly reach the brothers Irene, Cedric, and Aine very soon. As it turns out, the heroine is smart because the older brothers will definitely put pressure on the future emperor because he dared to do such a thing. Now the girl is going to get some rest. She sends Eve away promising that if anything happens, she'll call her immediately. The hero recalls Irene's behavior and wonders again what it took to act like this. There was a reason. Derek won't let go of the woman who ran away with his body. If the couple spent the night together, that means they must marry immediately afterward. To stop the girl, he first needs to return everything to normal. The guy has no idea how the beauty took possession of his body. Even just thinking about it, the boy can't remember eating anything strange that day. Everything was as usual without any additions. The only thing special about that day was the magical night they spent together. The hero will never forget it. If the reason is what happened, and if it is because of this that the couple changed, then the solution will be obvious, even without questions. The hero realizes he'll have to spend another night with the Countess. It's the only way to get everything back on track without any problems. Only a few days had passed since the maiden swapped bodies with Frederick Leafridge. They were all roughly identical. Thanks to careful planning life, as Derek is proceeding smoothly and without problems, this cannot but delight the young lady. Everything was great except for the dinner with the Emperor and Empress, which took place literally the day before in the evening when everyone had gathered. The couple desperately tried to reunite with their son, whom they had once thrown out of the empire with their own hands without regret. My heart begins to ache just looking at the helpless faces of the Emperor and his wife. Perhaps these are just Derek's past feelings that remain. A man's body skillfully suppresses pain and tears as if trained. She couldn't even shed a tear despite everything that was happening. Brunette had to control his emotions since childhood, which became quite obvious. He was forced to do so without question. The girl prefers not to think about what happened to young Derek because it's not her problem. Everything will settle down with time. For now, we need to focus on rescuing the Chandlers. The Marquise immediately asks how the dinner with the Emperor went. Another letter arrived from the Count's estate, apparently addressed to the man's daughter. She truly can't seem to calm down. Turning away, the young man says that everything is happening again, just like before. The old man sends the letter for the fourth time without a reply. Although Derek is a reasonable prince and rude, he should have definitely noticed that his body was already with the Countess, who did not yet intend to give it back. Until the lady breaks the curse, they cannot meet in person, or it will be the end of her. It won't be long now until the end. According to the curse, when swapping bodies, even a light touch of head to skin can return them back to their bodies in an instant. Swapping bodies for healing is exhausting enough, but the maiden won't be able to bear it if the prince stands in her way. That's why she should be careful. The girl had to endure a lot, just books. Opening one of the pages, the heroine finally finds the envelope she was looking for. The tome originally contained crushed ingredients for an antidote. All that was left was to add them to the tea. Looking at his watch, the young man counts down 4 minutes. After this time, the drink is ready for consumption by the one under the curse. Taking a sip, the hero winces. The taste is terribly bitter, but the lady is still obliged to drink something like this for another week or so for the sake of her family. Another 7 days passed. The handover of Derek's body and the escape would take place on the night of the full moon, when the most opportune moment for what needed to be done would be. By the time everything returns to normal, everyone in society will be whispering about how cold the prince is to the princess. He hasn't answered a single letter. When the maiden returns to her body, the young man will definitely come to her and try to talk even through a completely closed door for salvation. This time, Irene will avoid the prince out of grief. Everyone has already heard what he did to her on Rebos Island, and they hate the air. It doesn't matter where or how they meet because it won't matter much. She'll be asked to explain herself, but it will be simple. The girl knows what she'll say. She was scared when she and His Highness suddenly swapped bodies, and she has no idea why it happened. The most important thing is the tears in her eyes. Irene tried to protect His Highness, and even if nothing came of it, at least she did everything in her power. The lady isn't about to tell you about the curse. After numerous attempts to kill Derek, he was cursed by the most evil archduke. He turned to a dark mage. A man is doomed to swap bodies with a woman after spending the night with her. When this happens, an acquaintance plans to kill the woman and erase all traces of Frederick's soul from the earth. The powers of the possessor of the royal family's body are limitless. Once Chandler lifts the curse, the emperor will find a suitable female heir who will soon become empress. The lady doesn't know about the younger members of the imperial family, but she knows for sure she doesn't want to be his bride. This guy has a terrible temper. From an early age, the main character's parents taught her to choose a husband wisely. He will have to respect his wife and treat her with care. The main thing is to keep in mind the family's circumstances. In that case, someone like Count Sylvian would be quite suitable as a future lover. There's a knock at the door. It's Pierre Sylvian, who seems to have read my mind and is now waiting to be allowed in. Nodding his head, the man opens the door. A boy with fair hair and innocent eyes bows his head, greeting the young son of the empire. He is the Duke's eldest son. A smile flickers somewhere at the edge of her consciousness. The lady only thought he'd be a suitable husband, so it's no surprise things turned out this way. Pierre looks a little different. He always smiled without prompting when he was with the princess, but now his face has changed slightly. While asking about the business, they had managed to complete the prince stops because he is told about the messenger Chandler whom he met on the way. It was Mrs. Irene who sent him, but it is obvious that the young man is not even planning to meet anyone or change anything for himself. Clenching his fists behind his back, the blonde finally says what he's got in mind. He believes the young lady's treatment is excessive and has crossed all boundaries. The Chandler family is connected to Pierre in many ways. First of all, they both share royal ancestry, which is something important and unifying. The estates are so close that the walk takes only a few steps. Their fathers are close, and the young man himself resembles the girl's brothers. They always praise the boy as an attentive gentleman. Despite the wonderful picture and relationship, the lady still has a grudge against Sylvian in her soul, which is causing her to have a hard time. The Countess's mistress is a problem. The heroine has no intention of getting close to her because it's not to her advantage. The girl is a little sad because it is clear that she is interested in making friends with the young lady from the Chandler family, but this is not destined to come true. All this is because Madame is the main character in the novel, The Cursed Prince. Lelia Sylvian. The lady doesn't look like someone who'll be spending the night with Derek. She's the one destined to fall in love with him and accept the care he offers. The redhead isn't going to be there even for the sake of silence. She shouldn't bother the blonde so as not to get in the way. All Irene can do is act as a decoration for the event. The crown prince will return to the country and the lady will seduce him. But if Lilia gets involved, things will only get more complicated. She'll have to prove her mettle. The girl didn't want this turn of events, but her life was on the line. Since she'd slept with Frederick next time, she might as well try saying hello first. For now, he needs to emerge from his thoughts and answer Pierre. Asking again what the blonde man said, the young heir frowns in confusion. The lady is glad that Sylvian is defending her despite the fact that the prince is so smug. His anger is only valuable at moments like these. Now, Madame is in Derek's body, so she can't thank the young man. She would like to, but she understands it's still too early. The blonde man falls silent, trying to contain his anger. He also came to convey the words of the older Chandler brothers. Both are concerned about their sister's well-being and would like to extend their vacation to properly care for her. Everyone is acting as usual. The couple are real palace sycophants. They could use up their entire vacation in a year and never leave the Count's estate for a second. Most likely, Frederick in his girlfriend's body is now drowning in his brother's love. If they so choose, they can stay home. The young man promises to pass on his message to them. Turning away, the man asks if he will take Irene with him to the Emperor's birthday, but he answers with a simple no. The boys surrounded their sister, handing her cups of tea and the teddy bear she loved. They were merely showing concern, but it was enough to drive the prince crazy. These brothers appeared out of nowhere. They will stage demonstrations against the girl's abuse to protect her dignity. In the Crown Prince's palace, the two are like wild cats, but around their sister, they become domesticated. They spend most of the day together. Everyone offers their own ideas. Cedric suggests a stroll in the garden, while another compliments this idea with tea in the fresh air. At the mention of Ribos Island, the girl's expression sank. She stared glassily at the wall, thinking about what had happened. Apologizing for mentioning that place, the red-headed man points to the table where they left tea and cookies, which they should like. They are about to leave. Before disappearing, everyone kisses their sister on the cheek. She sits there in shock because he is actually a man who works with them. About half a month had passed since they'd swapped bodies. The young man was tired of pretending, and he didn't know how much longer he'd have to endure it. Irene dumped the prince after spending the night together. The crowning glory was the proposal necklace, which was never used. The girl's face is certainly elegant, but in 85 years, it will definitely become boring. A man will never forgive a woman for making him feel ashamed of herself. Chandler is the only one with all the answers, but she keeps sending the messenger back. The boy is obliged to find out everything he needs to know on his own without help. If the lady was so keen to swap bodies, there must be evidence somewhere of a threat to his position, but it needs to be found. If the papers are found, then the future emperor will look at her with astonishment, and everything will become clear. She won't be able to escape. Irene is trying to do what's necessary only to save herself. At this point in her life, her only concern is her family. Trying to find any clues, the young man spent 2 hours in the office. He was almost giving up, but then he seemed to press a button that opened an extra drawer. The hero has discovered something he desperately needs. A secret he hasn't yet figured out what it is, but anticipation is taking over. From the outside, the book looks like an ordinary volume, but since it was hidden, there's something hidden inside. Madame was careless in this matter. While the man doesn't know exactly what his girlfriend is thinking, he won't let anyone set their sights on the position of heir to the throne. Opening the first pages, the hero blushes and throws the album into the distance. The paper depicts naked actors. First, there was a new wave of misunderstanding, and then sadness. After another look at my face in the mirror, I wanted to return to my body and forget everything. What the hero was worried about didn't happen. The morning after the body swap arrived, returning everything to its original state after the coup, the young man woke up just like Irene. She was stretching comfortably in bed, praising herself for finally breaking the curse and the threat to her family. Surprisingly, the body was quite healthy. At first, the lady thought that with a character like the future king's, he would do something to her in revenge. The room was safe and sound, just like everything else. Eve knocked on the door, asking the lady if she could come in. Smiling, the lady invites the maid inside. She doesn't seem to notice anything strange and, as expected, behaves normally. Irene had refused all appointments, so she considered applying to the Crown Prince's palace, but nothing happened. Asking for something simple to cook, the heroine overhears Eve's joy at her mistress's return to taste. Lately, the lady had been reluctant to eat constantly, turning up her nose and saying she felt unwell. Now, however, everything has improved and couldn't be better. The whole family gathered for tea. They were discussing the fact that the young man was communicating with their daughter in this way. Virgo finally returns to the family she's been trying so hard to save all this time. She sits down at the table while tea is poured for her. The father calls the lady baby, and nothing bothers him because it seems as if only yesterday he was holding a newborn child. Without a doubt, time spent with family is considered the best time in the world. Irene isn't ready to change her mind about that. Before the heroine left for Ribos Island, she and her brothers were drinking tea. The girl's mood noticeably plummeted, knowing what awaited her. Cedric encouraged his sister, saying that if the prince attacked her, he could just punch her. He was a wonderful doctor and would be able to heal wounds. Despite the objections, Chandler believes this isn't something he should have said to the Emperor's doctor. In any case, the remark was ridiculous. As the family discusses what happened, a servant arrives with His Majesty's orders. He wishes to see Irene. The Count refuses, saying his daughter is heartbroken, meaning she'll be home. The future emperor promises to come to the estate if he doesn't get his way. The head of the imperial faction has no right to refuse the wishes of the future emperor. The virgin understands that she must go. The heroine is not obliged to sacrifice herself for the sake of her family, but she does not consider it something terrible because she knew that she would be called. In fact, Irene was even really looking forward to this cherished moment because she wanted to know how Derek would react. Smiling and stepping out of the carriage, the lady asks why the prince came out to meet her. He remains motionless, continuing to stare ahead. The most intense part of the plan Chandler had built was over, and now she could finish the last part to be free. Stepping aside, the young man asks what the lady did with his body. The lady usually smiles, but for some reason now she looks sad. As expected, the hero figured it all out, so the original dunno theory won't work. Liferidge must have put a lot of thought into it. The lady knew they'd swapped bodies, but it was a surprise to her too. She was simply trying to act appropriately so no one would notice. Like anyone who realized something was wrong, the girl should have contacted the man, but she dumped him after a night together. Stepping back, the heroine insists that she did everything right because a bird with a red ribbon flew in, and that meant only one thing. This may serve as an excuse, but the girl also sent away all the messengers that were sent as if she were avoiding the prince. The man demands to know the reason for ignoring him for 15 days, which really hurt his fragile heart. His voice rises imperceptibly. Unfortunately, Irene can't say anything because that's just his nature. Despite this, he's still insanely handsome. This might be the last time the beauty would see that face up close, so she sighed. She wanted to keep her distance from the young heir to the throne. The reason the red-haired woman didn't want any more contact was simple. She no longer loved the prince, so she refused. The young man had been persistent just a moment ago, but his expression suddenly changed. When the lady had chased him, he hadn't even glanced at her, but now for some reason, he regretted it. The line has already been crossed, so there's no point in delaying. All this time, the Countess has been hurt by this man's carelessness. Honestly, the beauty hates Derek with all her heart. These words hit her like a slap in the face, leaving a mark on her heart. Judging by the silence, there's nothing more to say. With His Highness's permission, the lady leaves, turning sharply and hoping for a happy ending. All this time, the heroine followed the prince, hoping for a smile that would one day be bestowed upon her. Unfortunately, this did not happen. The weariness of pretense and happy smiles grew. The Countess clung to love like a dog who sees nothing but its master. Returning from Ribos Island, the heroine thought for a long time. Her father was right, so she wants to love someone who will respect her. Eve, standing nearby, immediately agreed with the lady. She certainly deserved the best, simply because of her kindness. The maid is delighted, but she can't understand how the lady dared to say such a thing to the crown prince's face. In her place, she would have been frightened and fainted. There is no contact with the prince now. I need to contact my assistant to find out everything and begin preparations for the emperor's banquet. Passing by one of the paths, Irene notices Pierre, who seems to have been waiting for his beloved all this time behind. Every time the heroine sees him, this man becomes sweet. His feelings are too obvious because they are impossible to hide. The blonde man heads to the crown prince's palace, even though he usually has too many things to do that have nothing to do with the future emperor. Derek runs as fast as he can. He can't let his beloved just walk away. There's still something left to give her. The young man freezes as he runs up. He watches the events unfold between the two as they discuss the banquet to which Sylvian plans to escort the heroine. This man is definitely the best choice for an escort. They are both from the royal family and have known each other since childhood, so rumors won't spread. A smile puts her friend at ease, and her dance partner is excellent. The girl asks when she should give a full answer. The lady heard from the knights that her friend had received numerous letters. He said they weren't as important as Irene, who was always number one. The lady is getting ready to go home. Sylvian, like a true gentleman, offers to walk her back to say a few goodbyes. A disgruntled voice is heard. The prince thinks his seventh son has too much free time, although this is not the case. Bowing his head, the hero apologizes. He met the lady, so he stayed to talk for a while before she left to return to her estate. A few minutes later, Pierre leaves. In a rough voice, the young man asks to talk to him about what just happened between them. The brunette is undoubtedly going to continue asking questions about the curse. The more the girl talks to him, the harder it becomes for her. Beginning to cry, the lady begs for forgiveness. She's hiding too much to speak of. This time, for some reason, the young man doesn't shift all the blame onto her. Eve runs up just in time. She takes her mistress's arm, telling her they should leave. The emperor can't make things any worse than they already are. That day, the lady calmly got out of the situation without any problems. But even so, she understands that she forcibly took possession of the prince's body. Derek is a powerful man, so he can punish the Chandler family with full determination every day without stopping. The heroine left no evidence that could lead everyone to her estate, but as the heir, the man can create it himself. There is nothing left to do, so the lady acts as if she was hurt by the rudeness of a guy she doesn't care about at all. According to the maid, the woman has been looking in the mirror frequently for the past few days. She quite likes her tear-stained, pleading face. If the hero had blinded his beloved, everything would have been much simpler because he wouldn't have to worry about his family. Trying to get the young man out of her head, the lady asked to look into that very shop on 3rd Street to buy some jewelry. The lady promises to come when everything is ready. It's worth making more tea to calm down and for the wonderful helper from that place. Sitting at the table, the hero continues to think about what happened. Irene's tears were 100% expected simply because of who she is. Of course, there is no joy because being in an enemy country, the hero put his life on the line to develop feelings, and she dared to show her feigned feelings. Those tears were fake because the beauty took the opportunity to escape and avoid questions about the body swap. Through conversation, the young man learned that his acquaintance had deliberately swapped bodies. If it hadn't been intentional, the escape would not have happened. Taking a beautiful box out of his pocket, the guy stares at it. Inside is an engagement necklace which was never given to its owner. When it happened, the prince threw the item away, but the maid who was cleaning returned it. These are His Majesty's precious feelings. Irene is smart, so they'll discuss the future empress's position. This time, the guy doesn't even know what to say. Chevreul knocks on the door only to hurry in. He's brought delicious tea worth trying at least once. The future king had been drinking that very same drink every day for the past few days. That's why the servant decided the gift would definitely please him. Smiling, the hero asks for Irene's brother to be summoned to the palace. He urgently needed a doctor's examination, and he had found her weak spot. Finally, the blood was gone. The man stepped aside, taking the beautiful flask with him. A blood test can reveal a lot. Cedric promises to tell you everything as soon as he learns the exact table with numbers and norms. An idea comes to mind. What if Irene drank poison tea when they switched bodies? Anything is possible. If it's true, then the young man is obliged to punish the lady. He doesn't know how much the woman who ran away after a night together will beg for mercy. A wicked smile blossoms across his face, darkening the brunette's expression. He's filled with anticipation, knowing nothing good will come of this. The lady is ready for the special evening. Her outfit looks absolutely stunning, and it makes her feel wonderful. Before the coming-of-age ceremony, her father himself declared that Chandler was free to choose the outfits for the family when they all went out together. At first, everything didn't go as planned, but thanks to the Count's support from an early age, the lady received letters from famous designers. Eve practically jumps for joy around the girl. The dress she's wearing is probably also from a famous designer, so no one else will have anything like it. The lady hasn't yet decided who to go to the banquet with. It will be quite difficult to choose a worthy partner from a pile of letters. There's less than a week left until the event, so it's time to choose someone to accompany you. Sighing, the heroine places a bright seal on the letter and asks the maid to send it to Duke Sylvian's estate. She knows exactly what to do. A friend's son would be the best choice. The blonde man is personally requesting it, so it would be extremely impolite to refuse. The lady understood that the request would soon be fulfilled, so she sighed with relief. Mother asked her to come down for the meal. Upon seeing his daughter, her father immediately says her outfit is wonderful. Choosing stylish clothes has become a new hobby for the beauty. Mom points to the table, saying that the chef had prepared all of Irene's favorite dishes that day. She deserved to try something delicious right away. The brothers aren't in the dining room yet. Aine is already coming down, and Cedric had to rush to the palace because he was called at such an inopportune moment. Jumping up from her seat, the lady shows her interest, or rather concern. It seems the queen is very ill to have been called so urgently. The problem is different. The crown prince hasn't had a checkup in a while, so he needs to check all the results to ensure there are no abnormalities. The results are already in. Having returned the body, the hero can undergo a medical examination without any problems. It's quite smart of him to do just that. The tea Chandler drank to cure her curse was definitely laced with toxins. No matter why she gave the prince the concoction, if it's discovered, Irene faces the death penalty for treason. If Derek is concerned about what's happening, then his friend also has the right to be concerned about the consequences, which are best avoided. On the last day, she drank tea to neutralize toxins. Even if other non-toxic substances are found in the test, the young man will not be able to understand why exactly he was given the decoction to drink. So the lady is one step ahead. Aine arrives just in time. He smiles and asks how his little sister is feeling. The girl seems to be in good spirits. Sitting at the table, the girl chats with her family, experiencing a strange and alluring feeling of victory that brings pleasure. The heroine had no way of knowing that the results of Lyfridge's examination would be beyond her expectations. Everything went wrong, yet again. Cedric checked everything thoroughly. The blood test results showed nothing unusual, so he immediately relayed them to His Majesty. Frowning, the young man asks about the aftermath of the assassination attempt. He wants to know a little more so he can be one step ahead of his girlfriend this time. Chandler frantically flips through his notebook. If someone tries to bring in the crown prince, the future emperor, it will be impossible to ignore. Nothing suspicious was found this time either. If someone had used poison, there would certainly have been a trace in the blood, but no. An interesting thought comes to mind. If a person constantly used a light dose of the drug, everything could have had a different effect. If the assassin hadn't used a neutralizer, even small amounts would have been detected. There's nothing to be done. Even if the lady had possessed the prince's body, it would have taken her time to smuggle the poison and antidote into the palace. It took 2 weeks, and the woman, quite bold, was willing to do such a thing. One last sample remains. The young man asks about the effects of what he's been drinking for the past few weeks. The hero wants to know if the effect everyone's so unanimously talking about exists. As a palace employee, the red-haired man completely agrees. The rumors are true, as the herbal tea that was given to the king is quite beneficial for men's health and for preventative purposes. Trying not to laugh, Cedric orders himself to pull himself together and finally begins to talk about what effect the potion has. His Majesty used herbs that are effective in increasing stamina. The realization came rather quickly and left him frozen. The herbal tea the lady drank is extremely beneficial for men. It's odd they took care of that, since in that case, everything would have been planned ahead of time. If that's really the case, then the maiden left the prince because he wasn't good enough. Something in bed didn't go as planned, or it just wasn't supposed to. Hearing light chuckles, the hero looks up, asking if he's joking or not. He breaks down and starts laughing even harder. It's as if Irene decided to mock the feelings of the young man who ultimately received nothing. He's worried about what's happening because he's considered strange. Now it seems like all the words about love were lies covered in a layer of dust. I remember that day when the lady declared that everything had disappeared, including the feelings. It became clear that the words about respect and a good man were also lies. She decided she had the right to turn up her nose and confuse the future king himself. A beauty who left another man for true love can't just start drinking men's tea. It turns out it was a simple test. Irene had been constantly clinging to His Highness, but suddenly she changed dramatically. It seemed as if everything had gone according to her secret, undisclosed plan. The maiden wasn't pleased with the disastrous night. Without knowing it, the hero gave her his first precious experience and firmly believed that if a couple spends the night, then marriage is a completely natural development of events. Snatching the papers, the brunette crumples them into a ball and throws them in the trash. He won't let anyone trample on his dignity and leave everything as is. Sitting on a bench in the shade of the trees, the heroine yawns. The assistant promised to arrive just in time for lunch, but so far there's no one in sight. She's starting to feel terribly bored. Instead of the one Irene was expecting, Cedric appeared on the horizon, who, noticing his sister, furiously waves his hand in greeting. Smiling, the young man tries to tell her something that will definitely lift her spirits. He has just arrived from the palace of the young heir to the throne. As it turns out, His Majesty regularly takes herbs to stay active and lead a normal life in both senses. The boy bursts out laughing but immediately falls silent when he sees his sister's sad face. She seems lost in thought and has entered another world. The lady was so focused on neutralizing toxins that she completely ignored another use of the decoction, which helps with the impression of girls. The heroine wanted to lift the curse, but she didn't want to insult the young hero who now looked foolish in everyone's eyes. He was a good man, but now no one would believe him. Now the lady is incredibly uncomfortable. She needs to come up with a new plan to explain herself, but it's too early for that. Irene doesn't like what's happening, but her brother sees it completely differently. He thinks the lady still can't forget the crown prince who made her suffer. Reaching out, the young man grabs his sister's cheeks, asking her to cheer up a little. There's no point in trying to hide anything, especially your own feelings. Seeing a woman suffer because of a heartless man is heartbreaking. No one wants a relative to go through something like that. Both her father and brothers are deeply concerned about the girl and believe she needs to find a worthy husband. The Count created a garden on the Rose Alley where the lady took her first steps as a child. Raising her head, the lady notices the crush. Derek stands there, certainly not supposed to be in such a place. His Highness is demanding to know where his former lover is. Opening the gate, the girl calls the prince to her. She dismisses the servants who should not worry about anything. There's no point in getting on their nerves. It seems the young man has come for the results of his examination. The heroine simply must deal with this to ensure the best possible outcome. Stopping the beauty, the young man asks if she would like to forget that very night, and that's why she's acting this way. He doesn't say anything more. It's unfair to say something like that and then fall silent as if you're still waiting for some logical answer that won't come. Aside from his clumsiness, the night wasn't all that bad. The man made sure they both enjoyed it. It's unclear why the young man thinks the whole reason is because they spent the night together. He knows that if the woman had the chance, she would have pushed him onto the bed. Turning away, the lady smiles slightly. She doesn't deny the fact that she would indeed do something similar if she could. Her brother should have told her everything by now since he's a doctor. The heroine simply drank some restorative tea with an aphrodisiac. Although the interlocutor had no malicious intent, she nevertheless took possession of the body without permission and did something else to correct the mistakes. If the truth were told, the lady would lose her head to save her from death. Derek had to declare his curse. If a man does something like that, his path to the throne will become increasingly difficult. You can't just give people something to whisper about. If this is really how the prince intends to pull it off, then it is unclear why he is trying to pretend to be threatening. Noticing the slight movement, the red-headed woman raises her eyebrows in displeasure. She doesn't quite understand what the young man is about to do. Maybe Derek hid a knife there, that's why the lady is twitching. A strange box with a beautiful necklace appears before her eyes. This pendant bears the royal symbol, and everything immediately becomes far more confusing. The heroine still can't bring herself to ask about anything herself. If the heroine accepts the gift, the deception can be immediately forgotten. The young man asks her to become the crown prince's wife and take her rightful place. Turning away, Irene simply says that she cannot accept such a gift, which is not the best option, and especially not with an offer. Everything that is said next sounds a little stupid, but the girl wants to fall in love first and only then marry the man she likes. It seems the woman wasn't satisfied that night and therefore isn't interested in marriage. The man returns to the same conversation they started with. Leaning closer and grabbing the lady's shoulder, the guy tries to convince her to repeat what happened. This time, both will be satisfied. Derek is too handsome, but he's talking nonsense. No one said the beauty would want to repeat what happened, and she herself hasn't confirmed it. The lady tries to calm down. It's important to remember that she's playing someone who's been deeply hurt by love, and she's unhappy in every way. Turning around, the heroine says it's impossible for them to spend any more time together. Their love simply evaporated in such a short time. The longer Irene looks at the boy, the more attractive his face seems. If he hadn't distracted her, she would have continued staring at the same spot. Frowning, the hero says he's giving her one last chance. He's not going to play stupid games, so he wants to know what the problem really is. The Empire's lesser son forgot that the maiden was no worse at negotiating than he was. The beauty tucked her hair behind her ear, asking him not to speak to her in that tone. The lady calls Derek by his first name because she remembers a conversation they had a little earlier. The guy likes being called that. The girl refuses everything offered to her because she wants nothing more. This is strange because even after returning to the Empire, she constantly followed the prince. At that very moment, it seemed as if fire had ignited in the other person's eyes. Anger welled up, which the other person was trying to contain as best they could. Unfortunately, the lady feels nothing at all. Even so, when a man promises a wife's place in a hot night, her heart can't help but flutter. Unrequited love is always a failure. The woman was supposed to keep it a secret, but ultimately, nothing came of it. Now there's nothing between them. The Chandler family has their own plans. The woman knows her parents want her to meet a young and sweet man with whom they will live a happy life. The brunette can't seem to calm down and just give in. He asks what kind of love the girl needs because she won't tell him. If the girl answered, the young man would only realize he knew nothing about the word in general. Explaining would only tire the heroine, so she refused. The conversation was interrupted at the most opportune moment by Hades Killian, whom she had been waiting for. The young man had brought gems especially for the mistress. Smiling, the red-headed woman greets the gentleman. It all happened just in time, so the lady asks him to come with her, asking for forgiveness from His Highness. The woman hopes for understanding because a guest has arrived to see her with whom she will be together for some time. Frowning, the guy asks in confusion if there are any other men here besides him. At first, it seemed impossible. The young man works in a jewelry store. Irene ordered jewelry for the banquet in honor of the future king's birthday, so the time had come to receive it. According to the prince, the hero is too young. It seems he's stuck in the mind of the stereotype that the red-haired woman will attack anyone with beauty and intelligence. The salesperson looks young, but is already quite mature. He has plenty of energy, as he sometimes has to fulfill a mountain of orders that come pouring down from above. Smiling, Chandler asks His Highness what else he needs. There's no point in starting a fight or shouting when you can send Derek out gently. Clenching his fist, the hero would like to say something more, but ultimately turns and leaves. Frederick doesn't want to waste his time with the young man. Irene never expected to be offered the position of consort to the future emperor. While it was strange, it was better than if he had acted differently. If a girl from the Chandler family takes the crown princess's place, the nobles' disagreements will definitely subside. In that case, both sides will benefit. Most likely, the lady would have agreed, and that's how things would have continued. But Derek's fiery nature drives her crazy. With other people, the heroine feels calm. They hadn't seen Mr. Killian in a long time. He'd fulfilled the request perfectly, and it hadn't even been difficult knowing what the reward would be afterward. Irene wants to hear about the gems, so she suggests they take a break. Sending Eve to the kitchen, the girl asks her to prepare snacks. The door slowly closes after the maid runs off toward the dining room. A silence falls over the room for a moment, like a dome enveloping the entire space. Sitting down on the floor, the blonde took off his glasses. Now it was just the two of them left, and he was almost thinking he'd run away because of the boredom that had overtaken him. Stroking the young man's hair, the heroine says she misses him too. Finally, they are together. Hades Killian smiles back and blushes slightly. He seems just a little embarrassed by what his friend is saying. The young man is glad he did as he was told. He always wants to give his girlfriend only good news and never see her upset. Continuing to run her fingers through her hair, the lady suddenly asks about her perfume. Nodding vigorously, the young man awaits praise, to which the heroine replies that it's not bad. The only request is that you don't wear perfume like that when the guy comes to visit. Irene rumors might spread that he's seducing her. If the baby looks at you with such cunning eyes, the maid might get everything completely wrong, and this will cause a lot of problems. The young man nods and turns away. He seems a little offended, but at the same time understands how important this is. The hero asks if the lady knew his secret. Finally, everything has changed and he has become an adult, not the same as before. Sighing lightly, the redhead plays the game, saying that she didn't even realize that her birthday had flown by so quickly. The only one who supports Killian is Irene, but at the same time, she doesn't care about him at all. It seems like she doesn't care. Hades understands this situation with the work that's piled up, so he says nothing. He has a habit of raising his eyebrows in agreement. The girl met the guy 10 years ago. He heard someone he knew mention her, so he just wanted to meet her in person. The boy didn't think that such a sweet lady would really support him because she didn't look like someone who wanted to do such a thing. The little girl chuckled and asked him to be quiet and not make any unnecessary noise. She was 2 years older than the blonde man and demanded respect. A person caught in an affair like Irene is always worried about how to attract people to his side and come out on top no matter what. According to the original plot, Hades is a villain who roams around like a wild dog. In the original, he hooked up with a villainess, but in this one, the woman managed to get close to him first. The heroine was too young to fully support anyone, so she had to work hard to create a fake character. The girl truly needed the young man's honesty and loyalty. He had been abandoned by his father and had become a street thief. She had no choice but to help. The hero became Irene's personal assistant. Later, the man received the support he sought, and the undergrowth near the royal capital was placed under his control and authority. The fact that the guy hasn't forgotten his benefactor and still works with her is commendable. Leaning closer, the lady asks what her friend would like for his birthday. The young man, as usual, jokes about kissing, but quickly changes the subject. The aristocrat's latest move is strange because there's no evidence or proof. It feels like they're planning something grand. There's a good chance His Majesty will be talking about the crown princess. Ever since Derek returned to the Empire, the aristocrats' attention has been focused there. Each of them will do anything to ensure that the princess's place is taken by a lady from the aristocratic group. The recipe cannot be changed. Because Irene was constantly with a man, the hatred fell squarely on her. She didn't even notice how it happened. Rumors will soon spread, so the lady asks Hades to eavesdrop. Afterward, the boy must recount everything in detail so he can understand what to do next. A young man asks if he can kill someone who spreads rumors but is denied. He needs to be mindful of what comes out of his mouth. I'll have to listen to the higher-ups insult the beauty. The banquet is just around the corner, so I'll have to wait until they get there. Killian had never seen his friend be nice to those who messed with her first. Everyone would get what they deserved sooner or later. Once the transmitted information was confirmed, it became clear what plan needed to be made depending on the future. Archduke Cadion, one might say the leader of a group of aristocrats, exchanged letters with someone from abroad. The man was quite ambitious, and what's more, he was the emperor's free brother. He had too much power, and there was no stopping him. This man is the son of Lady Lola, the emperor's former lover. The woman was of low birth, so everyone in the palace held her in contempt. The lady did not challenge the empress. She didn't need money, only the opportunity to lead a peaceful life and maintain her honor. She knew her place. It was a life without need, but she had to live with her head down and then become the mother of an archduke. Cadion was so little, he didn't understand what was happening. That's why the little boy took the bow as the ultimate insult. Time passed and war broke out. At that very moment in the man's life, a great opportunity presented itself to carry out his plan. Derek's uncles, the first, second, third, and fourth heirs to the throne, died on the battlefield. One morning, the boy woke up second in line. Liefridge the Younger was exiled as a hostage to stop the mages from turning people's homes into battlefields. So he disappeared, and so Cadion became the more likely successor to the empire. After this, the members of the aristocratic group sided with the Archduke. The young man, however, placed a curse on Derek. As a result, even Irene herself suffers. If a brunette exchanges letters with someone from abroad, it becomes completely unclear what exactly he is going to do. The day before the event, the young man decided to look through all the letters he'd sent to his beloved. Surprisingly, they all seemed to be consistent. The hero read everything written to find her guilt, but only realized that she was much more talented than the noble persons, so she managed to complete everything. There is a knock at the door. Sylvian has arrived, once again entering, trying to maintain his neutrality. Bowing his head, the man greets the Empire's lesser son. Come to think of it, he always calls Irene simply by her first name. Distracted from his thoughts, the brunette listens to the fact that the interlocutor is going to report on the affairs in the command of the Seventh Knight. After the story, the prince dismisses the knight early. He thanks him as he can now begin preparing for the banquet more quickly. There's a hint of arrogance in his conversation and words. It seems the boy has already found a partner for the banquet, which will be taking place very soon. Deciding to enlighten the future emperor, the hero says that it is Chandler who herself gave her consent to dance together. The man has already faced countless threats and offers of cooperation, so he knows how to hurt someone's weakness. By pretending that nothing has happened, by pretending that the words of others mean nothing, he achieves perfection. Now the man can no longer remain calm. He told the lady to wait, but she immediately found another partner. They had just parted, so the young man thought the lady would be accompanied to the banquet by her brothers or father. The young man seems genuinely close to Irene, which is a little annoying. Hearing her name, Pierre frowned slightly, not quite understanding the topic of conversation. As is already known, the Chandler family is quite close to his. He and the lady have known each other since childhood and are friends. When the blonde man asked, His Majesty said that he was not going to accompany anyone to the banquet, so the man made his move first. The fox foresaw that if the prince refused, Pierre would be her escort. While she was in his body, she told Sylvian everything. When the lady pretended to cry, most likely these were tears of happiness, which she was not pretending to show to the public. The blonde is undoubtedly a favorite of many. Even Liefridge himself has heard compliments on his shiny hair and mysterious violet eyes. On the days when the Seventh Knight's squad went out to train, there were only girls with scarves crowding around to help. The young man always smiled back, saying that he was pleased with the way they cared for him, even if many remained just as busy. With his gentle expression, people might mistakenly think he was a man of the rules, but Irene is completely clueless about men. Both boys, even the one from the gem shop, are skinny. There's nothing to see there, or maybe it's because they're fun to play with. The prince is calmer because Pierre would cry if someone left him after a night together. Chandler did not satisfy even the future emperor himself, so others cannot be better than him at all. Thoughts about what happened still haunt the boy and are incredibly upsetting because he had hoped for something and even proposed. If Irene had looked at Pierre with the same loving eyes as she did at the main character, then he would have seen what was destined for the prince. The thoughts that come so quickly even make him feel uneasy. The young man is terrified to imagine such a scene. Addressing his interlocutor, the brunette reminds him that it's too early to rejoice at the banquet. Everyone knows that Archduke Cadion has his sights set on the throne. If forced, a lady will be forced to make a choice in honor of her family, and then there will be no choice left. We mustn't forget that, either. The blonde bowed his head before leaving. He realized there would be no constructive dialogue, so he decided to let things continue as they were. The prince has a high position in society, but for some reason he forgets this and begins to behave like a child. It's a bit stupid. The day of the event, as usual, began with the lady dressing in a wonderful outfit. Eve squealed with satisfaction at the sight before her. No matter how many times a lady looks in the mirror, the truth about her will never change. She truly does look simply wonderful. It's time for her to conquer the gym. Smiling, the red-haired woman thanks her. She's sure other ladies will also want their makeup done by the maid who is truly talented. My father and brother blink in amazement, offering compliments. They think everyone in the room will go crazy at the sight of something beautiful. After the lady's appearance at the ball, men will begin to flock to the estate to talk and ask her out on a date. The eldest son of Count Sylvian's family has arrived. He enters apologizing for being almost a little late. Smiling back, the beauty tells Pierre that he looks wonderful. The young man almost immediately flushes a deep red that doesn't fade. It seems the hero is quite satisfied with his companion's outfit since he's acting this way. There's no need to say anything so as not to embarrass the boy even more. The banquet promises to be a joyful affair. The family says they'll meet at the venue because they're planning to use a different carriage. The man offers his hand to the lady. Extending her hand so that it falls into the blonde's, the red-haired woman says that she is already expecting everything to go just wonderfully. Pierre is a little nervous. Anyone would be nervous if they got the chance to dance with Chandler at the banquet. Besides, the family has entrusted me with protecting their daughter. All the nobility will be gathering that same day, so that should be a bit annoying. If something happens to a lady, it's best to tell her right away. For example, if she doesn't want anyone to get close, it's best to tell her right away. The blonde man seems to be talking about Derek. He doesn't say his name directly, but it's immediately clear, even from his smile, which seems overly friendly. The kids at the event are the first to start whispering, and then everyone else, Chandler and Sylvian, arrive together as a couple, which everyone expected. The ladies in the group of aristocrats look at them with disdainful glances. They seem to be trying to overwhelm them with their numbers. As they approach, one of them greets the Duchess. Trying to maintain a good atmosphere, the beauty asks if they are enjoying His Majesty's banquet, to which each receives a strange feeling. Covering her face with a fan so that the distorted gesture would not be visible, the brunette says that everything is fine and thanks her for asking so quickly. In that case, they can continue to enjoy their company while the heroine goes first. She doesn't want to remain in such a group. Pierre is already taking the lady by the arm so that they can leave, but then the same aristocrat stops Irene on the move, asking her to stay. The couple leaves anyway, but the lady says it's strange that the Duchess arrived without Frederick. She used to cling to him nonstop, but now she's given up. Looking down at the floor, the beauty tries to contain her anger and disappointment. She knew this would happen. Apparently, she had no hope of becoming crown princess, so she decided to become a countess. Everyone in the aristocratic group is exactly the same. The blonde is about to say something, but the girl stops him. It's better to leave everything to her since it's not his problem. The girls were the first to start playing this game, so the beauty considers it necessary to show a little sincerity that will be remembered for a long time. With a fake laugh, the brunette says she didn't realize how loud she was speaking. No one knew the lady would be able to hear it. The heroine freezes, trying to remember something. She peers into the woman's features, realizing she's seen her somewhere. The beauty chuckles and sucks her chin. Her efforts aren't in vain because an idea seems to pop into her head. Now Chandler remembers exactly what happened because she met the woman at the reception. Her face was unremarkable, but now everything is clear. The three of them went to one of the events together. At that point, the girl was still clinging to Derek and looking at him with loving eyes. The only thing that comes to mind is that she was a young lady from a family that had lived in the countryside for a long time and had only recently received a small place in the capital. Perhaps because she was unaccustomed to the capital's social world, she dreamed only of status, but instead did something absurd. That day, she spilled wine from a glass on herself. Lowering her eyes, the brunette apologized for spilling something that wasn't necessary on herself, and for the scream that was loud. The woman insisted she tripped and did it by accident. That's a blatant lie, as she did it deliberately to get Derek's attention. The lady decided the man would be hers, so she grabbed his hand. Pretending to trip on level ground, she exclaimed that someone had cast a curse. Leading the brunette away, the red-haired woman asked if he would mind sitting further away for a little while to calm down. The girl was left completely alone. People around her began whispering that she had done it all on purpose, but it became clear that nothing had happened at all. This man is no better than Chandler smirking. The lady merely says that when she looks at her interlocutor, she immediately remembers the past. The maiden once saw them with the crown prince, and that day she deliberately spilled a glass on herself to attract His Highness's attention. The lady blushed excessively while the others began to discuss. Better get ready because Irene has only just begun her game. Angrily, the brunette asks why she's bringing up something that only happened once. Apparently, she enjoys dwelling on other people's mistakes. No one in this world can avoid making mistakes, and sometimes they do. The woman claims she could buy 100 more of these dresses. The people around her agree, but somehow slyly, not understanding where this is all leading, the lady asks the maiden about what she said. It seems true. Smiling, the girl asks if it's true that the brunette can buy another dress. The strategy remains exactly the same as before. It won't work because the designers have already been notified. Irene told them there's a girl who spills wine on dresses for attention. No one wants to sacrifice their hard work. The item wasn't made by designers from the capital, and it must be difficult to buy dresses from far away. It's not always the best idea. There's a lot of work to be done because in the future, Chandler plans to advise those designers on something else in order to drive his friend into a corner. The aristocrats crowded around the lady, asking her to stop. They seemed unsure who they were dealing with, so the heroine asked what families they were from. No one dared to reveal their last names for fear the lady would remember and the count would not leave them alone. Everyone knows that when it comes to the youngest daughter, the whole family intervenes. Pierre notes that the girls don't seem inclined to talk anymore. It's a shame, since it's not easy to remember everyone's names. Turning away, Irene prepares to leave. The conversation had been extremely engaging, but now it would be best to leave. Approaching one of the waiters at the event, the Virgo offers her companion a little champagne. A little fun is allowed at the banquet. The young man had seen the girl drink wine before, so he wasn't surprised. He remained silent as he accepted the glass. Asking for the wine, the hero offers lemon juice. He doesn't want the lady to get carried away after the first drink. Chuckling, the lady notes that her friend is angrier than she thought because he is going to hold her hand secretly when she can no longer control herself. The blonde man blushed visibly nervous, shouting why such a thought even entered his head. It seemed Irene had gone a bit too far. The heroine was only thinking about how to spend the night with Derek, so now all her thoughts are of that nature. She's just joking and doesn't intend to repeat it. After drinking the drink, the lady quickly loses her mind, so the man asks her to wait while he brings fruit. This is only because the girl talked a lot of nonsense last time. The girl can't even remember what happened between them earlier, apparently because she drank too much at that time. The young man had just found a suitable companion for Irene. A beautiful blonde appeared from afar, waving to her brother. The woman didn't immediately notice the red-haired woman, so she apologizes. The blonde man promises to be back very soon. Lily also knows that the heroine is always getting in her way, so she doesn't try to hide her embarrassment when she's around. Abandoned without knowing the reason, she undoubtedly felt extremely uncomfortable. A slight look of fear was evident on her face. It's clear that the whole problem lies with the young lady. She's the one who's gotten in the way because Lilia is the novel's main character and she became Derek's mate. From the perspective of someone caught up in the romance, there's nothing surprising about it. The girl knew nothing, even though she was treated this way. She must still be in pain. Now that the lady has broken the prince's curse, there's no need to treat young Sylvie in that way anymore. She starts a conversation on her own. The girl pinched her arm sharply as if trying to bring herself back to reality. Her interlocutor, surprised, asked why she had to do that. The heroine was the first to speak to Lilia, so for a second she even thought it was a pleasant dream. This had never happened before. They begin a conversation. The lady has heard that many people are in love with Pierre, but in reality, he seems awkward. Expressing his feelings is difficult for him. Looking at the man, the lady couldn't tell that this was true in any of its manifestations. He was too stately to be so embarrassed. The blonde smiled again, laughing slightly. It still seemed hard to believe she was able to discuss her brother with a friend like this. The red-haired girl always paid attention to His Highness so much so that she didn't know how much fun it would be to talk to Lilia. The lady freezes, trying to digest the information. She refuses to accept that what's happening is actually true and wants to run away. Turning away, the woman ponders what to say about her friend and the crown prince. It's hard to believe that she too believes the beauty was madly in love with his majesty, but then gave in. There's no need to worry. When you truly love someone, there's no point in regretting even a single moment that flies by. Turning from side to side to check the room for prying ears, the blonde leans closer, saying that she knows the news. Irene will become Derek's new wife. Everyone knows that the man has always been cold towards the Countess, so she does not think that the words spoken are true. For a long time, His Majesty Frederick has been looking only at the girl who is standing in the far part of the hall as if trying not to lose sight of her. Meeting the future emperor's gaze, the lady doesn't understand what's happening. He shouldn't be looking at her so closely. If you think about it, the guy usually wears something simple, but this time he dressed up as if for some special occasion. The only possible reason is that he wants to look cool to attract someone's attention. Nothing else applies here. While taking a sip from his glass, the hero still maintains eye contact, which he does not want to lose by pure accident. Lily adds fuel to the fire. Everyone already realized what was happening because His Majesty doesn't take his eyes off the couple. In some ways, her friend is right, but only Frederick knows who exactly he is looking at. Irene or Sylvian. As the heroine knows, Liefridge places Lily in a high position above other aristocrats. There's a hidden meaning to this. Once the woman even saw how the brunette met with an acquaintance to quietly hand her some important box. That day, the young man opened the thing and even allowed the girl to see what was inside. But surprisingly, she did not accept his gift even after begging. When someone like the future emperor gives gifts, it's not easy to refuse, but she did. Perhaps the couple is close. Derek gave the gem to a girl who pretended their meeting was a coincidence. That person was none other than Chandler. The man gave a piece of stone, which another lady had previously refused, as if he were giving money to a beggar on the street, which angered the lady. To seduce the prince, the girl had to pretend to be happy, naive, and accept the very stone saying from the heart, "Thank you." The gem was the size of a finger and shone so brightly like a frozen drop of honey fallen from the sky. The miraculous phenomenon haunted my mind. Seeing her friend's happy face, Sylvian smiled contentedly. Even then, the woman couldn't understand why she was smiling so much, even though her gift had been given away. After the incident, the Countess gave the stone to Eve, as every time she looked at it, it became incredibly painful. The maid was happy. If Derek is looking at Irenia instead of Lilia, then he's simply regretting losing a great card. There are no other options left. A person who only cares about work definitely needed someone as cunning and good at planning as the heroine. The thoughts are abruptly interrupted. Pierre appears behind her, smiling and calling the girl's name to get her attention as quickly as possible. The guy arrived late because he was choosing the most beautiful fruits and pastries. Lilia immediately gets ready to leave, saying the conversation was pleasant. Nodding in response, the blonde watched his sister leave, then returned to his companion. He brought everything she loved so much. Holding out a plate on which all sorts of delicacies are laid out, the young man watches the lady's eyes, who is happy. The hero still remembers exactly what kind of cakes the beauty ate with pleasure when he was invited to dinner at the Duke's house. The lady didn't realize such little things were noticeable to others, so she laughed. There was no need to do it, but it was pleasant. The blonde is not one to force himself to do something he doesn't like, so he asks not to say harsh words in a fit of embarrassment. Pierre has always been like this, and this care for details and a sea of emotions is something that I could never get from Derek, just like banal respect. Now the lady begins to understand why the aristocrats keep sending letters to the Seventh Knights. He's just that good. The boy's every emotion is reflected right on his face. This is exactly what ordinary people do without trying to hide behind a mask of arrogance. The only unusual thing is someone whose face reflects nothing like Derek's. For years, the maiden was preoccupied only with the prince, but now she must get used to the normal reactions of others. The idea of choosing a friend as a dance partner was wonderful. Thanks to the young man, the reception turned out to be much better than initially expected. The blonde man nods, smiling. He's pleased to hear that the lady enjoyed the food, but she's talking about something else entirely. Something about the knight himself. What Irene just said should be seen as another chance that should be taken advantage of while there is still time. The man wants to hear a normal answer, but the lady holds out a cake, asking him to open his mouth. She'll be upset if she refuses. Unable to stand sitting on the sidelines any longer, the hero goes downstairs. Liefridge noticed the couple was having fun, but he doesn't know what Irene was doing there. Once again, Derek decided to ruin such a sweet moment. His furious gaze made it clear that he'd lost his temper as well as his appetite. It seems the baby was upset because his ex-girlfriend was feeding her friend. He has no right to behave that way. The lady is not in the mood to play games with the guy, so grabbing a strawberry, she once again asks Pierre to open his mouth. Obeying the request, the young man parted his lips and swallowed the berry. Sure enough, it was quite sweet and pleasant. Still standing to the side, the brunette was almost flushed with anger. He couldn't watch this kind of game. Irene pretends not to hear, but it's more than enough to anger her. She no longer wants to follow the future emperor's orders. Previously, the girl understood him without words, but from the words she speaks now, it becomes clear that this was never true. The man once again tries to prove his case, but Pierre steps forward in time, asking His Highness to calm down a little and step back. Chandler will dance with her friend at the banquet because he was the one who invited her earlier. The prince must not say that he is going to take the lady of the seventh night, otherwise he will be extremely upset by what is said to his face. On this day, the guy's duty is to not let his partner get bored, so he can't allow Irene to go with him. The two stand facing each other, their eyes piercing each other as if they're fighting wordlessly. The woman standing behind them can't quite comprehend what's going on. If they fight, this news will clearly become the hottest news among the aristocrats, and this cannot be allowed under any circumstances. Asking for both of them to be excused, the red-haired woman says she's going to dance with Sylvian. If possible, she'll find the king after the banquet. The young man doesn't understand, since when the girl is in the presence of other guys who are not part of her family, because it is indecent. Irene had wanted to dance with someone other than her brothers before, but the one she had an unrequited crush on turned her down at the first opportunity. The lady would really like to dance, and finally she will be happy, because for this evening, she already has Pierre who has agreed. Stepping back, the heroine asks them to excuse her because one of her favorite melodies begins, which makes the heart take flight. They get along well, but the idyll quickly ends. Running up to the girl, the prince says it would be better if she danced with him first. It seems the lady misheard. When she asked Derek to dance with her earlier, he flatly refused, saying he didn't want to. That day, the guy refused so bluntly that even the rest of the room noticed the scene that unfolded. Now it seems opinions have changed. The whole reason is that the prince doesn't like Pierre, and he's trying to prove something so that it would be easier for him alone. If the brunette understands about the body swap, you should refuse immediately. There's no reason to discuss something with him that won't ultimately yield any benefits. Mr. Sylvian is the first one promised to dance, so there's no chance. Now the lady doesn't listen to him anymore. His Majesty must understand the position he's putting his friend in. If she agrees, it will only become more reason for ridicule from everyone else. For some reason, the brunette leaves calmly. He doesn't try to get involved in the argument, but simply turns away, looking at the floor with a sad expression. Derek is so proud that he doesn't want to discuss it any further or even say anything in farewell. It's no longer Irene's problem. It's worth meeting the prince later to discuss everything, but for now the best option is to start the dance slowly since he will be the first. The boy looks innocent, but he knows how to joke about something like this. He doesn't seem to mean it, so he blushes trying to concentrate. Usually only a countess would think of such things after what happened. She's just joking and imitating the mischievous wives to make the night laugh. The music starts and they break into a dance. He really is a wonderful dancer and tries to make it show. The blonde smiles, eliciting a response from his companion. The couple twirls around the room as if no one else exists. The aristocrats immediately begin whispering. The lady has just rejected Liefridge Jr. and given her dance to another as if she were in love with him. The others also join in the wave, asking Irene to dance with them too, or the mister to dance with other girls. The first dance with Pierre goes well. The lady led everyone to believe she was no longer interested in Derek and her place as princess. Everyone around falls silent as a servant announces the arrival of the Archduke and Duchess of Cadion, who have placed a curse on the boy. The door swings wide as the two slowly walk inside, their faces frozen in an indescribable, stony expression. The aristocrats begin to gather around the new arrivals, so the lady asks her companion to come closer with her and see what is happening. Catching sight of Frederick in the distance, Cadion smiles, saying he sees the face he's been waiting for so long. It doesn't suggest anything good is intended. The son of the emperor's mistress has no right to call the crown prince his nephew, but that is exactly how he addresses the man as soon as he gets closer. The man asks whether the young man has become accustomed to high society in the capital in such a short time since his return. There is no question about the speed of what happened because he had previously lived in a castle abroad, unlike the Duke. Cadion's time growing up on the battlefield lasted longer than in the palace, so it was certainly difficult. Interrupting the conversation, the young man asks to consider the Duchess's upbringing. She shouldn't break her neck if she bows even once. That woman is too young to be a man, so she likely doesn't fully understand royal etiquette. The people from the aristocratic faction seem too mean. Judging by the couple's reaction, it hit them right in the heart. They understand what they were getting into from the start. Since the prince still hasn't found a partner, the Archduke will help him. He reveals his true colors, intending to exchange the souls of Derek and his chosen partner. The future emperor defends himself, saying that others' affairs are none of his business. He's still alone, so they worry about him. There are plenty of wonderful ladies among those gathered, but there definitely has to be one to whom the man wants to give his first dance. He points his finger at Irene. If the heroine refuses, she will give the other aristocrats a chance. Being on the emperor's side, she cannot refuse, as doing so would insult her faction. Seeing the prince obediently hand over his beloved to Pierre, she thought he had given in. No one had imagined he was biding his time for such a situation. The blond man standing behind her restrains himself, pulling his hand back. The heroine can only smile submissively and then agree to the proposal. Taking His Majesty's hand, the girl digs her nails into his palm with all her strength to make her displeasure, which is very pronounced, clear. The lady doesn't seem to like the idea. She didn't want to dance with the young heir from the start, and now it shows. There are so many eyes watching them that it's better to smile. The girl recalls how the prince repeatedly refused to dance when asked. Because of what was happening, Irene assumed her friend simply hated events that involved dancing. She had no other ideas. Chandler will have only this man to blame because there are no other options. He was disgusted by touching the beautiful woman while they were dancing. His Majesty falls silent. He tries to come up with a worthy response that won't be laughed at by the maiden standing next to him, continuing the conversation. Frowning, Derek insists he never says he feels uncomfortable touching his companion. It was all in her head because she was upset. This man is lying again. He couldn't stand the one who clung to him, or rather the main character. Moments when this was clearly evident popped into my head. Sighing quietly, the lady tries to remind him that she is not so stupid as to sit and wait to be told that she is hated that much. The girl is sure that hatred is inherent because all this time she was diligently pushed away every time she approached. It's not that the man didn't like the girl. He can't find the right words, and they don't leave him any free time. The music starts playing. Many eyes are watching the couple, which means it's time to start the dance. In that case, all that's left to do is to move forward. Extending his hand, the young man grabs the lady, who remains focused so as not to spoil anything. Leaning closer, the Countess closes her eyes in pleasure. Through the thin fabric of her dress, she can feel Derek's strong hand. Everything feels completely different than with Pierre. It was clear from the start that these two were complete opposites. The woman can't forgive herself for her thoughts. This man is driving her crazy, and therefore he must pay for it because such behavior is unimaginable. The lady deliberately steps on his foot, claiming she did it by accident. Mr. Sylvian is such a good dancer that he avoided it, but it's considered impolite to mention another man in front of your partner. From that very moment, the hero asks to look only at him and not think about anyone else, at least until the end of their dance. Derek seems to have lost his temper because he is now showing his attraction to the girl with all his might, even if it is obviously not the best idea. The young man breaks down and says that the squad leader has hands, which means he can eat on his own without his partner handing him a little food over and over again. It all started because a woman fed a guy in front of everyone else. He seems to be criticizing Sylvian, who didn't even do anything. If the couple stops, people will start chatting again. The best option is to continue dancing, which will only stop with the music. The lady never fed the prince, but she did so for her own reasons. She knew he would be hated. So she remained silent and made no attempt to do anything. Mr. Pierre was holding a plate in his hands to make it easier for the lady to eat, so she decided to thank him by feeding him some fruit. It feels like the heroine is in a hurry to get rid of her feelings for the air while showing others that she is happy. The young man continues to dodge the shoes that are trying to land on his feet, saying that in some sense he understands his partner. The lady's freedom is already coming to an end. It only takes a little while for the boy to understand the spell she's cast on him. This is exactly what the heroine was waiting for. There's no point in being embarrassed because first she needs to pretend she knows nothing to save herself. Smiling slightly, the red-haired one asks what kind of spell they are talking about, as if she hadn't done anything, but it elicits a slight laugh. Because of a beauty, they swapped bodies. The girl was as confused as the hero himself, so she continues to play the innocent. The brunette isn't listening. Soon he'll investigate everything and get to the truth. The offer of the crown princess's position is still open, so it's worth considering. The curse was lifted and no trace remained. Furthermore, there should be no more body swaps, and until the young man loses interest, the lady will tell him he's mistaken. The song is almost over, so Irene steps back. It's time for them to stop, just like it is for everyone else. Loud applause erupts from the crowd who think the couple danced beautifully. The Duke must be happy. His Majesty appeared at the perfect moment. He thanks the lady's father for raising such a wonderful daughter as she. The king is confident that there is nothing that could prevent her from becoming the new empress. The girl laughs lightly, trying not to show it. Dancing warms even the queen's heart. Irene's dancing reminds her of Duchess Chandler in her youth when she arrived here. Curtsying the lady thanks him for the compliment, but His Majesty assures her that everything is fine as there is no need to be so serious. Don't bother your head with unnecessary thoughts and even better come to the palace more often. A man invites a lady to dine at the Empress's palace. When Irene is free, she can enjoy the castle's beauty. If she's busy later, there won't be time for a visit. The conversation went in the wrong direction, because now they are both sure that the lady will become the crown princess, and then the empress, which everyone is eagerly awaiting. Although the heroine does not intend to become their daughter-in-law, she still has no right to refuse, because Her Majesty personally invited her. Pierre had been searching for Irene for hours, but she seemed to have vanished. He clearly saw the girl heading in the right direction. Near the balcony, the young man finally notices his girlfriend holding a glass. Her face is slightly flushed and her hair is disheveled. The lady immediately apologizes for having a little more to drink, even though she wasn't in the best of shape. She needs to rest. Pointing to a door in the distance, the girl suggests going there, as there should be a cool breeze there. Sitting down on a chair on the balcony, the heroine tries to calm herself down a bit and not fall. Her friend puts his coat over her shoulders to keep her warm. The blonde man promises to bring some water to make things a little better. He's truly so caring and loving that it's a real pleasure. The girl is also touched by the fact that the young man did not get angry after the dance with His Majesty, which took place and to which she had to agree. The hero sighs. The words have made him perk up, but of course his friend doesn't know that. To hear something like that, the guy had to lie a lot. As a gift, the lady decided to act seductively, but he pretended not to notice. It seemed like an excuse to be alone. The most important thing Pierre understood only after he brought her some fruit which she really liked. Irene likes the innocent look of the guy who's constantly circling her. He doesn't mind because he likes it. A girl likes to watch how a man tries painfully for her to gain her trust, and so that she likes him even more. The boy is truly willing to do anything to win the heart of his childhood friend. He likes her more than anyone else in the whole wide world. The girl seated with her friends filling almost the entire room is outraged by the future empress's behavior. She didn't take a single step as the prince did when the emperor appeared. The fact that the girl decided to go with a man to Ribos Island because she wanted to get into his bed makes more sense. Now everything has changed because upon returning to the Empire, the hero was cold towards the maiden, who no longer tried to pull off anything. The brunette doesn't believe the girl was so bad that they started treating her like that. Most likely, it was terrible. Raising his glass, the young man approaches, saying he's heard about this woman many times before. She is the daughter of Viscount Alt. As he tosses back the contents, the young man watches the drink cut through the fabric. He advises against this very behavior lest it lead to worse consequences in the future. That lady shamelessly slept with a man, but don't say that. She thinks the gentleman is just like his girlfriend since he's hanging around her. The woman still didn't understand. The one Alt accused was a beautiful snake, and Pierre was merely a creature enchanted by her and submissive. That's why the hero doesn't even hesitate. The girls sitting behind him try to ask the lady what's going on. Sir Sylvian couldn't splash water in his face because he's not of the Emperor's faction. He apologizes for his clumsiness. The ladies didn't even realize a man had joined them because they'd had too much to drink. The same thing happened to the brunette, so she stood in his way. There's no point in worrying as the young man doesn't care. When this happens, extreme measures are immediately resorted to, and usually this doesn't happen. Smiling, the hero asks not to leave her dressed like that, otherwise the girl could easily catch a cold. A woman forces a man to stop lying. Miss Alt has been forgiven, but she still makes a fuss trying to get ahead and ruin everything. In this case, only the image of the victim would be spoiled. So even Irene sitting above understood that Pierre would tear the girl to pieces. This man is one of the few who belongs to the imperial faction, yet is held in high regard by the aristocrats. He knows full well that a woman will never ruin his image. Although the Countess knew the boy could be impulsive at times, she didn't expect such cunning. He was the perfect partner. When the young man returns, he carries several glasses on a tray. He apologizes for being late. The hero brought cool water, warm water, and ice water. The lady chose the warm water to avoid getting sick and stay ready when needed. The blonde guy says he's sorted out Ms. Alt's situation. He thought her friend didn't like the girl, and it looks like he was right. The guy is trying to show pity. He's literally in scolded child mode. For some reason, the heroine didn't expect such behavior. Because of the perpetually angry Derek, the woman now finds this kind of thing endearing. She's grateful, but the man promises to make her only happier from now on. Lilia will be hosting a tea party soon, so the young man promises to send an invitation. The lady agrees to attend. The blonde is overly happy, even if it's just a casual answer. He's overacting, but it doesn't matter all that much anymore. In this case, the hero leaves his friend alone so that she can rest a little and then meet up with the rest of her acquaintances. Pierre was so overjoyed that he didn't even think about being seen. He showed his true emotions, which hadn't been hidden. The lady usually doesn't accept such invitations, but now she's delighted even if it happens every year. It's all because there's Sylvian, eager to see his friend. Suddenly, the woman realizes she's seeing her own back standing on the balcony. A moment later, she realizes she and Derek have swapped bodies again. Irene doesn't understand what's happening. The curse had long since been lifted, but somehow now everything has changed once again. Nothing connects them anymore. The plan for the takedown was perfect. The girl hadn't made a single mistake, even if everything remained as strange as before, as if it had happened while they weren't even sleeping. Perhaps everything has changed so much that it's now reversed. The lady no longer understands what to do in this situation, so she panics. Marquis Chevril remains on the sidelines as the prince flees. He pauses on the balcony asking why everything has happened again after it was all over. The Countess herself should ask what happened, but neither of them understands. The hero asks them not to use their voice, which is spouting nonsense. In that case, the girl can be as rude as usual because there's nothing wrong with that. She can think about anything without overthinking it. The couple abruptly turns away from each other so as not to get on each other's nerves any further. They can't bear what's happening any longer. It would be a mistake to waste even more time, but it's also not worth telling the young man about everything that's happening. Otherwise, it will only make things worse. What doesn't leave the girl's head is that the night with Derek was a little different from what was described in the original. In the novel, the man spent the night with Lilia, but they didn't do anything. She doesn't question whether it's all true if nothing happened. On their first night with the guy, their bodies and minds were far from what they described in the book. It's unclear what exactly changed, much less how. The problem can't be just how they spent that night together. That means the problem is Frederick. Apparently, the exchange occurred after the touching. The lady can't help but wonder what to do next, so she grabs the man's hand. After some resistance, the hero grabs the palm again, but a second later, he seems to be thrown back and his hand is shaking. It can't be true, they didn't even do anything like that, but Derek's body ended up reacting so strongly. Not understanding anything, the prince asks what the point was in doing all this when there most likely isn't even time for it, and there's no point at all. They finally switch back. The woman doesn't know how to switch bodies, so she just clutched her hand in fear. Now she's asking what they did to her. Last time they swapped bodies after a night, but then the only option left was that the young man slept with some other woman. The lady simply sat with Sylvian but did nothing of the sort. So most likely the one who did everything was the heir, but he denies it. The guy asks her to believe and remember those very strange words on her coming of age when he said that all she needed was her body. The hero has already said repeatedly that he has not slept with anyone and does not even plan to because there is no sense or logic in it. The lady remembers exactly what they told her then, but still doesn't even want to believe what was said, leaving her questions in her head. Those words were hurtful, but judging by the way Derek's body reacts at that moment, he's not lying. It's still a bit hard to believe. Perhaps the whole thing wasn't because they slept with someone, meaning there was another reason the book didn't mention anything, so the beauty doesn't know. The Marquise of Charville is somewhere nearby, so it's impossible to stand around and discuss business openly. The prince has arranged a meeting at the Blue Castle tomorrow night. This place is huge and the most luxurious hotel in the capital. Some rooms are designed for two, making it the perfect place for negotiations. If a couple wants, they can always do more than just talk. It'll be a matter of deciding based on the situation. Now the girl had to understand that everything that was happening and changing their lives began with that night they spent together. If there is no other way, then maybe they need to be together again, at least for a while, to change what is happening. Looking down at his hands, the hero once again notices that they are too small but cute. The man still remembers the moment when they swapped bodies. The hero tries to act like a friend. This has happened before, so this time promises to be much easier than before. If the man is with Irene again, then there will be an opportunity to fill in the blanks of that day. The reason the girl stopped caring was because she remained unsatisfied. The Countess drank men's health tea for a whole month until they swapped bodies again. It's all too obvious. If that's not the case, then a man and a woman can't be strangers after spending the night together. Perhaps the lady thought there would be a wedding ceremony after that. One Knight of the Black Wolves told His Majesty that according to many novels, he should be assertive right from the first time. Everything turned out this way because the young man listened to that man. He should have tried to go at his own pace. Luckily, they changed again, and in order to change everything now, they will have to spend one more night together. This time, the hero simply must make things right. He's ready to serve her and please her, but all that remains is to wait until evening. Everything should go exactly this way, but for now, the young man doesn't know what obstacles he might encounter on the way there. Eve, noticing that the lady was lost in thought, asked if she was admiring herself again. She looked worried, but her skin was clear, so everything was fine. If the lady is so concerned about something else, you could call Mr. Killian. He wants to discuss something from last time. A memory of that boy comes to mind. He was the gem shop worker the prince met when he came to see Irene. Even though Chandler is the one who influences the elite, it is strange that the workers come directly to her. Hades must have a special relationship with his mistress for this to be the case. If he notices any strange behavior in Irene and learns of the exchange, things will be very bad. In any case, we can accept the stones and say goodbye. Nodding his head, the prince asks Eve to admit the guest into the hall. Immediately after the blonde guy entered, he asked why his sister was staring at him like that. It seemed they were on a special level after all. The man's gray eyes are proof he's a child of an enemy state and their empire. It seems he has the blood of a wizard in him. If that guy has magic and can use it, then it would be understandable why Irene was acting so strange. It turns out the woman has her own henchmen, and perhaps they work together to steal the boy's body. If so, he must know something about the plan. Sitting down on the sofa, the beauty says that she just glanced and didn't openly pour herself onto the hero all this time without stopping. Smiling, the hero omits any corrections, not wanting to attempt negotiations. He came because the Archduke was acting strangely. It is strange that the servant should speak of such a thing in the presence of a lady who should have nothing to do with it. As soon as the reception ended, Cadion immediately dispatched his man to the kingdom of Elson. An investigation is needed to determine his intentions. Finding out more will be quite difficult. The lady asks why they are reporting to her so late. Exhaling, the blonde asks not to treat him and not to speak in such a tone, since he himself was very tired while running there from the 3rd Street. If the guy's hideout is there, then we'll definitely be able to find out Irene's plan from him without any delays. Putting his head on the girl's lap, the boy begins to say that he worked hard, so he asks to stroke and kiss her. The man can't believe that Chandler always behaves this way with this brat and doesn't know what kind of relationship they have. The prince cannot believe that his beloved touched someone else besides him and called them by good names. It feels like something's burning inside. Frowning, the girl asks Mr. Killian to leave if he's finished everything on time. The hero gets up and puts his bag back on. He thinks so too because he doesn't dare waste his sister's precious time who's in a bad mood. Evening arrived almost unnoticed. Arriving at the Palace Hotel, the prince handed over a map which was immediately recognized and promised to take him to a special room. The girl arrived safely at the place, but the problem was that she still didn't understand how to get the body back and what was happening. Passing one of the landings, the lady winced. She couldn't have expected anything less from a love spot. If Derek also fails to find anything, they will spend time together again. The servant gestures toward the future emperor's room. There's nothing wrong with that, really. To some extent, the heroine hopes they'll be together again. The girl is too worried about what she was like last night, while the boy is going to save them by trying to put his soul into it. The first thing the lady asks His Majesty is whether anything suspicious has happened at the Duke's estate. If the lady honestly says what she did, everything will be resolved faster. She's already said several times that she didn't do anything. A man can sleep with any other girl, not necessarily with Irene, in order for everything to return to normal. After they touched everything finally returned to normal, it became clear there was no point in trying to stay close. Leaning closer, the young man asks why she suddenly assumed that he slept with another when it was completely untrue. His Majesty hears the same answer to the maiden's ignorance of what she is talking about. He turns away in disappointment. No matter how much the couple talks, there's still no solution to understand how this happened. I'd like to know more. They've been standing next to each other for 2 hours now, but nothing's changed. There's no other way out, so they'll have to spend one night together again. The man asks the lady what exactly she wants from him, but she remains silent. If she doesn't want anything, then he'll be the one to speak for both of them. When they are alone, the young man asks to call him by his name, not even by his full name, but by a shortened one to make it more pleasant. Lowering his hand to his stomach, the hero asks to be there when he wakes. It's unclear what His Majesty is thinking, but he'll have to comply. For the body swap, it's crucial that everything is followed. If the young man has anything else to say, the heroine will listen and comply. Nothing more is needed, so not intending to endure it any longer, the man embraces the lady with a kiss on the lips. Derek touches her very gently, completely different from before, so it's hard to tell what he's thinking. She asks him to stop, but he's too carried away. The hero wasn't at all embarrassed by the fact that he'd forgotten about the pills they'd almost gotten to the main part without the necessary protection. There's no need to worry because pregnancy can be avoided only by taking medication. He asked the girl to open her mouth. It was all over in a few hours. It was midnight, so they both fell asleep almost immediately from the overwhelming fatigue that had washed over them. The man asked again whether the woman wanted to become crown princess. Even if they were to marry, they could postpone the birth of an heir to enjoy the moment. The young man even said something embarrassing about another man when the lady closes her eyes so that she thinks only of him. Perhaps when the lady wakes up, she'll agree to marry, and then everything will change. No one can say what will happen next. Irene is too beautiful. Her red hair would look great with a wedding veil and the wonderful white dress they'll design together. The hair is soft and reminds me of that very puppy the baby hugged when he was little. He was that very best friend. The dog was the only creature that helped him forget life in an enemy country and the days when he was a hostage. The animal's eyes sparkled like pearls, and its body was soft and warm. When the boy hugged it and touched its ears, he promised to protect it. Derek promised that as soon as he got stronger, he would make sure the baby was safe and didn't worry. But a day later, he died in the boy's arms. Opening her eyes, the heroine rubs her face. Asking His Majesty why he woke up so early, she doesn't understand what's happening at all. The voice is too sleepy, but it makes the young man even smile a little from the realization. The guy realizes his face is invisible so he can be honest. Looking at the lady, he says she looks like a dog. Trying to contain the anger that suddenly began to boil inside the beauty herself, wondered what he was even talking about. A guy once had a dog that looked just like his friend. The dog had long red fur that was exactly like his lover's. Apparently, the man loved the dog too much since he started telling a story. Once upon a time, the Marquis of Cherville gave the boy a new friend. The baby's name was Waldo. He was the only one who had been with Derek in captivity. This animal was very dear to the boy, and when she died, he suffered terribly. As Crown Prince, the hero was always accompanied by nobles. His parents, unable to cope with the pressure, sent him to an enemy country. That dog was a little creature Liefridge loved dearly. When Waldo died, the sensual Crown Prince died with him. Smiling, the girl says the name is very beautiful and sweet. She should support the man so he doesn't close himself off. The girl was angry when she woke up and heard that they saw her as a dog, but she was sad to think about the guy's past, so she agreed. The hero recalls how on the night of his first birthday in Elson, the baby jumped onto the table and ate all of his soup, which turned out to be poisoned. It's scary to go to an enemy empire at your parents' request. He's very strong because he survived everything. Even the prince's dear dog died from poison that was intended for the young man himself on his birthday. The girl feels sorry for Waldo, but the man turns away, saying that it is the dog's fault that he was unable to defend himself. It's not that there was anything wrong with the baby, it's that he thought his owner was worth dying for. It was Derek who raised the dog, so he was always ready to take risks for the one who was dearest to him in the world. Waldo was with the future emperor all the time, so the man meant the world to him. He understood that he had to protect his master. Several minutes pass, ending in complete silence. It seems the young man has no intention of saying anything. The lady goes to get some sleep before she gets worse. The man still thinks about what happened because he thought the lady would laugh at him for showing his weakness. But it's not so. Every time he recalls that very moment, the hero cannot control himself, as if someone had discovered something forbidden, something that should not have been touched. Opening her eyes, the heroine stretches, but immediately notices the empty side of the bed because Derek seems to have disappeared somewhere. The prince made last night so wonderful that words fail. The girl knows she's hurt him and has already fallen asleep elsewhere, so there won't be any questions if she comes home late. As she goes out for breakfast, the lady freezes because the heir is sitting there. He's done his best and brought enough food, which turns out to be a bit much. You could say the girl is picky, having grown up as a lady in a count's household. The crown prince can indulge in everything on the menu. The young man asks to try the food. He speaks as if he's mocking, although in reality, his behavior isn't the worst. The girl is about to try the pancakes, but notices how the hero gets up from the table with a knife in his hand. He was about to leave, but instead he walked over to the table and began cutting meat for the beauty. She should stay healthy. The red-haired one was too weak, and this was something that had worried the young man more than once when he found himself in her body. The guy's behavior seems unnatural. He only cares about swapping bodies, but now he's doing everything he never did before. The couple stares at each other, and the heroine finally gives in. She bites off a piece of meat from the fork she used to spear the food. The countess enjoyed the food here. This is evident in her demeanor, and even more so because she herself confirmed it. The Imperial Palace's chef has been working at this hotel for 20 years. It's a subtle hint that becoming a crown princess is worth it. The lady refuses once again. Last night was so wonderful that she's ready for anything, but she can't just say yes like that. Irene has no intention of marrying someone who simply showed up and satisfied her. It's enough for him to acknowledge that he was good. To avoid further squabble, the hero hands over a box containing shoes and a dress in the right size. After some time, the heroine finally reacts, saying that everything suits her and thanking her for the gift they gave her. After the transformation, the beauty appeared in the hall, but judging by the expression on the young man's face, something was missing. A necklace with a royal symbol would be perfect for a girl, but it would completely cover the entire neck for others. The man wanted to call a carriage, but they wouldn't let him. The girl left, but after a while, she stopped at the Riverside Bridge. Approaching one of the servants, misnames a secret year for a meeting with the underground organization. She is too young to be there. This man seems to be new. He thinks it would be better if the heroine's father came and replaced her in front of the others. Coming out from behind, Killian apologizes for what happened. He's just started work, so he doesn't know much. Another servant also apologized. He didn't know the lady was the boss's mistress and should have greeted her personally rather than behaved appropriately. To ensure this doesn't happen again, the old man will teach the staff a lesson. Sigmund is second in command of the secret intelligence organization. Cerberus Hades trusts him. He was originally the leader of the criminals, but now he's no longer intimidating. Asking the old man to leave the boy says they'll talk in private. Killian knows the maiden trusts him most of all. This time, she too wanted to share the deepest secret she'd been keeping all this time. The lady wanted to know if the young man had accidentally placed something in the herbs. This too was incredibly important. If he had done anything, he would have died immediately as he was so devoted. The basis of Hades' trust is a magical vow on his own heart, which the man made a long time ago. The boy is an orphan, but heir to the Tower Guardian's bloodline, and he has chosen to sacrifice his life for Irene. In such a situation, the lady can only trust him. If the problem isn't the tea, then perhaps it's her own body. Virgo had told him everything, so the one who called him Mr. Killian was the Crown Prince. Chandler was acting strange that day, but no one expected it to be His Highness. The curse most likely changed since the heroine didn't sleep with a man that day. In that case, she couldn't return to her body. Banging his head on the sofa, the boy complains that the bastard now has the opportunity to sleep with the lady twice. For the sake of his little sister, the boy promises that he will break the curse so that she simply does not suffer and does not continue to live as before. Asking what else is known about the imposed magic, the heroine hears that with the help of herbs, one can change one's appearance. Various herbs grow in Elson, but the ones you need are also sold in Sodo in small quantities. Brewed tea is usually used for headaches and stress as it helps to reduce these factors to a minimum. Perhaps someone was trying to use the herb to change the course of events, and it could well have been Archduke Cadion. Apparently, the lady was mistaken because a few days later, a receipt arrived with her name on it. If this is true, then that man doesn't want to kill Derek or Irene herself and isn't aiming for the throne. It's become clearer. Running to her brother in the library, the lady shows a piece of paper asking if he knows a plant called mandola. It was Cedric who gave the herb. He smiles, saying he'd recently added it to the tea to help. They drank tea together before the beauty's departure for Rebos Island. The lady was so worried that her brother added something to the tea to relieve stress. As the imperial doctor said, one cannot just stand by and watch his sister suffer from stress, so the hero tried to help. Unable to contain herself any longer, the redhead burst into bitter tears. She had tried so hard to break Derek's curse. No matter how many times the lady stopped Cedric from becoming the Emperor's doctor, he did not do it because he was going to become one for the sake of his weak sister. In order to have a special body to break the curse, the girl drank poison every day without the boy's knowledge. That is why the heroine becomes weaker every day, but does not want anyone to know about her pain day after day. Now Chandler had changed everything, and so the lady's whole life plan simply collapsed like a house of cards. Ian delivered Sylvian to the estate. He wondered where his brother was, but everyone knew he liked to spend time in the library. There is no point in worrying about Cedric because Pierre arrived at the estate only to deliver an invitation to tea. It's true, the hero had no intention of doing anything other than talking to his friend. He'd been waiting for this for some time. The brother sits on the floor next to his sister. She continues to cry, but he still doesn't know what to do next to help. An idea comes to mind about how exactly he can please Irene. The hero returns back quite quickly. The young man smiled as he handed her his beloved teddy bear. The girl hadn't seen him for a long time. Her brother gave her this little boy when she was only 10 years old. She truly loved him and valued him as a true friend. Irene would like to behave differently, but she can't, so she grabs the bear and tears the toy apart with force. There's absolutely no time for the little thing. The precious memory is simply gone, so the lady tosses it back to her brother. Getting up from the floor, the lady says she's leaving. She's not feeling well, especially since she's in the company of other people, and she doesn't intend to. The girl needs to think things through, but as soon as she sees Cedric, she starts to get angry. The curse changed without her knowing because of that tea with Mandola. There's a high chance they'll swap bodies again, even without sleeping together. Each time they'll have to spend the night together again. It's best not to tell Derek about this. If he's paying attention, he'll soon understand why his body was needed. I need to come up with an answer to the question of how I know about the curse. I have no desire to see his face. Irene worked hard, but no matter how much she suffered now, it would all be over and there would be no turning back. It would have been much better if my brother hadn't done this. But turning back time is impossible. Nothing will work now. At the perfect moment, the man scoops up the beauty in his arms. He carries her forward, telling her that his sister has a fever. If things are that bad, the young man is obliged to carry the lady to her room. If anyone sees everyone will simply assume the brother and sister have a good relationship. The servants behaved exactly like this, saying that they had been behaving this way since their early years, regardless of what kind of relationship they had. If Irene wants to sleep, it's best to go to her room. The young man will bring her some fever reducer to make her feel much better. The sister must be scared and feeling bad, but they will definitely help her and cure the pain that is affecting her from all sides. As expected, Irene can't defeat her brother. She can't be angry with him because he always did his best to please her. At that very moment, Aine enters the hall with Sylvian, who freezes with surprised expressions on their faces. The girl asks Pierre for forgiveness for having to witness such a strange scene and leaves almost immediately. Turning to his friend, the blonde asks her to stay a little longer because he has something to pass on. His Majesty ordered the lady to appear at the palace. This all happened even more inopportunely than Pierre's arrival. Derek even gave her some kind of gift. The woman only hopes it's not a necklace with the Emperor's insignia. It turned out not to be what the beauty had thought because in the end, the box contained earrings and a red pendant. The maiden had promised the Emperor that she would come to dinner in 2 weeks, and now the time had come to fulfill the request. Asking to convey to His Majesty what she will, the heroine sends the messenger far away from her estate. The brothers leave, or rather Aine leads Cedric away so he won't get in the way. Asking Sylvian's forgiveness once again, the lady reminded them of something important they were supposed to convey. The hero came to deliver an invitation to Lilia's tea party, but it seems that his friend is too busy to come. They won't force her to go anywhere so she doesn't get upset, so there's no point in even handing her the envelope. It seems that Pierre seriously thinks that since his friend received an invitation to the palace, she will immediately refuse to drink tea. Virgo is busy, but since everything has already turned out this way, the blonde asks to forgive him for the impudence he is showing. There was still hope that Irene would go with the young man to the event she had promised to attend. The girl doesn't seem like the type to break her word. She's already promised to come, so nothing will happen if it happens. In Duke Cadion's estate near the capital, complete darkness reigns. A dark-haired woman curses the countess. The lady had heard that Irene had given up on the crown prince, so the archduchess couldn't wait to see her weak side. As a result, the woman not only did not become modest, but also held the hand of the elite's second valuable man, Pierre Sylviane. Such an outburst was understandable, but Leifridge kept looking at her with a loving gaze. He was quite foolish to fall for the girl's love game. Moreover, the man ran quickly to the balcony alone after the lady went there after finishing dancing. I wonder what they were doing behind the closed curtains. But if things continue like this, they will have a child. The Emperor doesn't care at all about the gender of the heir. Once there's a child, he or she will certainly become a member of the family and become ruler. The woman comes into the room telling her husband that she is going to resort to the classic action to deal with Irene. The Knight of the Black Wolf and the Marquise of Cherville wish to meet with His Majesty. Both are already waiting. The couple sees the sleeping prince for the first time, surrounded by a whole heap of petals. The man asks why they made such a mess. The young man refuses to answer. The servant believes he will become a wise emperor and care for others if that is the meaning of his worries. Others see only what they want to see. So one can only hope that the hero will appear in a good light for his reputation. Because of the aristocrat's plans, he was forced to live in an enemy country for a long time. For a long time, the man had wanted to cut off the heads of those aristocrats. Those gathered cannot leave the young man alone for a moment, even if he passionately desires it. Nothing works even with time. The story of fortune-telling and petal plucking began with the words of the person who sent the invitation. He said the lady was crying. Irene decided that she would go to Sylvian's tea party almost immediately after that. The hero can't understand what he did wrong that night. Maybe she's upset because Derek ruined that important event. That day, the hero said his friend looked like a dog and also that she was cute and tempting to pet. Thinking about it, there was never a smile after those words. His Majesty plucked all the flowers but still concluded that everything was his fault. He didn't sleep a wink all night. Allegro reminded me of something about Elson this morning. There's something to be wary of in the near future. It has become known that the Archduke helped a foreigner enter their country, and this was a secret. This information is still being verified and verified. Preparations for tea are in full swing. Mom enters the room to hurry the lady, but is transfixed by the sight of her daughter's beauty. The little girl looks great in her makeup and outfit, which are perfectly chosen for her. The Countess also looks simply wonderful. Sending the maids away, the lady asks if the girl is interested in becoming crown princess. She simply lost interest. The heroine rejoices in her heart as she would like to see a loving and respectful man by Chandler's side. Finding a sister in Lily isn't so bad. The daughter herself knows that the Sylvians, while kind by nature, are narrow-minded. The Virgin is very pleased with Pierre's appearance. No one in the world would speak ill of his appearance. The Chandler family has money and honor in abundance, so the Countess simply asks for happiness in the future and not to doubt anything. Her mother's words caused the girl's chest to tighten more than usual. Her views and thoughts changed dramatically in just a second. Ever since Cedric confirmed that the curse had changed because of the herbs he had, the heroine had become extremely busy. First, through Killian, the lady calculated the formula of the curse and that Derek and his body would change in the future even more than they already had. The fact that the curse has already been reversed and that it's now possible to return to one's body without even spending the night with the prince is already very comforting. The fact that the hero is developing neuralgia is also not bad. The first thing that came to mind was to have my brother resign from his post at the Imperial Palace. Even if he did, if any illness were discovered, the Emperor would summon all the talented doctors. In that case, Cedric will brew those very herbs, knowing they're poisonous. His sister told him not to, but knowing him, he'll definitely do it to save people. There's only one option left, and that's to oppose Archduke Cadion. To lift the curse, you'll have to convince the mages the man hired or even threaten them. They'll contact their superior, so a conflict with the young man can be considered. Although the fact that the curse can't be lifted in one go complicates matters a bit, the lady knows who the enemy is, and therefore there is a chance of victory. She will be happy. They've already thought of several ways to intimidate the Duke, and now they just have to wait for his first move. They've almost reached the Sylvians. The lady turns her gaze to the window, where the maid points her, and notices the Archduke's carriage, which is his favorite for special occasions. All supporters of the emperors gather at the tea party, not only the ruling one, but also all the other contenders. Lily steps out onto the balcony in surprise. She can't believe the Archduchess has actually arrived, even if the invitation was sent out of politeness. Now the lady remembers how that lady asked to show her the estate, but it is unclear what exactly she forgot at the tea party after all. The girl had better watch her language so no one overhears Lady Irene hasn't arrived yet, and her brother is already playing the fool. Every time the lady speaks like that, she gets goosebumps. The prince can't even understand why his sister is called a saint when she behaves like that. No one knows that there is only one reason why they both created such a pure and gentle image in public. They both passionately desire only Irene Chandler. After her arrival is announced, the couple lights up with joy at the prospect. On the first day that Lily came out into the world, she returned with words about the lady and asked if she was beautiful and amazing for her. From that day on, the sister maintained an unprecedented and elegant image. She seemed fit enough to be near Irene. The girl even dyed the hair of the goddess and queen in the book red because she was enchanted. It's clear from her that there is no turning back. Even so, the lady isn't as mad as Pierre. This day is their last chance because the lady has finally forgotten the prince. A man should take the initiative. He won't have to do much, but it's perfectly acceptable to put himself forward and try flirting. Considering the maiden's crush on the prince, she had a taste for rugged men. While Pierre went off to get ready, the beauty decided to escort her guests to the table. Thanks to the lady, the woman apologizes for saying that Lily would be much happier if someone called her by her name. In this case, the girl can also address you by name. Don't address her as coldly as she did a little earlier. The conversation is interrupted by the most hated person, Kadion. She hasn't seen the lady since the emperor's birthday, so she asks how things are. Feeling uncomfortable, the lady thanks him for visiting the garden and then asks who the lady behind the duchess is, who is silent. This is Balian Kadion, a distant relative of her husband. She takes off her hat to illuminate the others with her beautiful smile and shining hair. Irene chuckles. The girl must feel threatened by the beauty of such a wonderful woman next to her. The heroine knows Balian as the distinguished youngest daughter of the head of the magical tower, Istra. She is Hades' older half-sister. The mages who cast the curse on Derek belong to the Tower of Istra, and surely no one knows that the lady knows this information. In the original story, the woman found Killian's illegitimate child abandoned by his father and took sides with him in an attempt to separate Lilia from Lotsfridge, taking on the role of the villain. Like those who inherited even a little blood from the tower, Balian also possessed innate magical powers, but even so, she could not demonstrate them. Balian did not succeed because the tower's leader, who was suffering from illness, bequeathed everything to his son Balak. With no supporters in the tower, the girl was left without her father, who was in a practically vegetative state, and without property. Seeing a sister's interest in the leadership position, Balak deliberately denied her a chance. He had connections with the empire's aristocracy, including the kingdom of Elsin. Perhaps the blonde arrived because her brother provoked her into joining forces with Kadion. Now it's clear why the Duke is so closely associated with the mages. Balian, who lost to Balak, comes to the capital to become Derek's lover and enemy. But this is not much different from the original. If the crown prince succumbs to the lady's charms and makes her his wife, it would be a blow. I would like to avoid that as quickly as possible. As expected, like the original, the best possible outcome would be for Lily to become Lyfridge's new love. The girl looks at Irene with hope. She believes that such a girl is no match for her, even if she is destined to be with Pierre. It's disappointing for the Emperor's supporters that Chandler no longer clings to the future king. At the time, they seemed quite appeased. The girl has no intention of becoming the prince's partner, so everything can be ignored. Let's just hope the mistress's stay goes well. After these words, the lady leaves. Until last month, she acted as if she would die if the crown prince didn't look at her. But now she's changed so much. There's no way she could know that Balian is the daughter of the head of the Mage Tower. If Kadion had been in the beauty's place, she would have understood everything. The heroine hopes the heir possesses His Majesty's insight. There's no other way to put it. The lady resembles Her Majesty the Empress. Of course, their marriage was arranged for love, and they are on good terms, but still, although it may sound sarcastic in such a situation, His Highness cannot afford to lose interest in Irene simply because of her appearance. As the Archduchess was right, perhaps the Empire is in for a momentous event soon. They started the argument, so Chandler isn't about to give in. She asks about the Duchess's son. As is known, Kadion has a son from a previous marriage who seems to have been forgotten. The couple abandoned the baby somewhere far away, claiming he was ill. It's odd that the woman mentioned this to his face. The ladies leave the garden, getting ready for tea. The Duchess tries to contain her anger while she asks for everything to go as smoothly as possible. One way or another, this is the only way Balian can survive Lady Irene is quite charming. So one thing is clear, the prince has grown up to be able to resist. The youngest son of the empire also arrived for tea, though it seems he was completely unexpected. The girls immediately bowed their heads. The Archduchess is asked why she has come, but she wants to ask the same thing. She wanted to have tea in pleasant company. At the same time, the heroine wants to introduce someone. She brings forward a blonde saying her name and saying that she is a relative of her husband. The maiden was too beautiful, and if that was enough, the game was worth trying. The man, on the other hand, stared at the lady's face. To spare the young man's disappointment, the girls plan to leave early. Balian will remain at the Duke's mansion for a while so they can visit her. The brunette frowns, not understanding why he should bother dropping in on them. Too much time has been wasted lately. The woman bears some resemblance to Hades. Her hair and eye color are different, but their facial features are similar. Her aura seems poisonous. Turning to the servant, the hero asks to learn more about what was already known. Now the task concerns the lady they met. I would like to know everything about the girl's family as well as where she comes from and everything else, so that it would be better understood in detail. Looking around, Irene asks Lilia where Pierre is, since he's nowhere to be seen. He used to frequent tea parties. The boy is either relaxing in his room or perfecting his martial arts in the mansion's arena. It's difficult to draw a conclusion. The girls set off on their quest together. When Lily heard her friend was coming, she wanted to plant red roses like the lady's hair. Be that as it may, the garden can be changed according to the wishes of the owners, so it will be right to enjoy the walk. The man they've been looking for a long time emerges from the building. He's unbuttoned 3 buttons and isn't sure if it's okay to appear like this. Lily runs to her brother to hug him. She heard that His Majesty, the Crown Prince, had arrived, even though he wasn't supposed to be there. Derek will probably be looking for the blonde, so for now, Sylvian can go for a walk and try to seduce Irene. As she leaves the young man, the woman apologizes as she has some urgent matters to attend to. She will leave the couple, but Pierre will give them a good tour. The guy extends his elbow to show the girl that they can go further, smiling. While the man was showing her the garden, the heroine discovered several new character traits in her acquaintance that were unfamiliar to her. His shirt was unbuttoned, so every step highlighted his muscles. The innocent look and the great body combined beautifully and were disconcerting. Pierre is the one who knows how to flirt. While they were looking at the fountain, a drop of water fell on him, so the young man wiped his face with his shirt. Chandler was shown muscles that didn't match his snow-white skin but looked so beautiful. This man is the capital's most eligible bachelor and is the discreet and kind son of a count. He can't behave like this in front of every woman he meets. It's hard to believe that a man tries to seduce a lady with his body and behavior, which sometimes goes beyond all bounds. It's all because the knowledge she gained for the sake of spending the night with Derek has made the beauty dirty thoughts are racing. As a child, when he first saw Irene, he froze. His brothers standing around said their little sister was the cutest in the world. The young man greeted the girl, saying their families had been friends for generations. He promised to protect his friend with all his might. To keep his word, he trained day and night, forgetting about sleep and food. Over time, the man became a knight and continued the family business, eventually developing a flamboyant image. Now the blonde stands there, unsure of what he's done. He wanted the girl to see him as a real man, and that's why it all turned out this way. Seeing the lady's reaction, the hero couldn't stop. He wanted her to call him by his name and for her hair to hang over his face like wisteria flowers. In fact, Pierre wants his wet body to be dried off. Then he would pretend to be ticklish and laughing hug and kiss his beloved. The girl stands awkwardly in silence. She's heard there's a bed of hyacinths deep in the garden, so the lady asks to be shown closer. The water beneath her feet played a cruel joke. As she stepped forward, the beauty slipped and fell right into the hero's arms. Her heart beats with all its might until the beauty realizes what has happened. This could even be dangerous. Opening her eyes, the girl wants to scream because she is in Derek's body and is watching the couple from behind the wall. Lilia, coming around the corner, says she won't help anymore. She said earlier that she helped because she wanted Irene to find strength and be happy. The girl no longer thinks about His Highness, so it is obvious that she is no longer interested in the union of the families choosing Pierre. The blonde's opinion won't change even if the man says that he has come a long way for the sake of the slums he ended up in. Liferidge may have enlisted the lady's help to install Chandler as Empress, but now she's unwilling to help. This means the young man has come to the estate seeking help. It is unlikely that this is a coincidence, so the man asks Lilia about the necklace, which was known about earlier. The man wants to run away, but he can't get out of her grasp. He doesn't know what to do next, but he sees a blonde man inches from his face reaching for his lips. The hero asks about the pendant that he had previously offered to his friend, but which she refused. This will be a leading question against the backdrop of the scene in the garden just recently. Witness Lily may tell the whole truth. As the girl said earlier, the lady does not wear the thing because it is not to her taste and looks strange. It's not that the young lady is unhappy that His Highness made a custom order for her, but that they wouldn't be a suitable match. It's really a shame, but the lady can't help because the man even went through training and preparation, but nothing worked. The girl can't believe what she's hearing. The necklace the lady accepted wasn't given away like a useless trinket. It wasn't because Lily rejected the gift. In fact, everything is completely different from what it seems. It turned out the item had been carefully crafted specifically for the future Empress. The man had chosen it himself. It's no wonder the young man was worried that the lady wasn't wearing the jewelry. If he'd mentioned it, it would never have found its way to Eve. If the man had not turned to Lilia for help, there would not have been useless misunderstandings that completely ruined everything. It's hard to believe that the young man wanted the gift to be liked so much that he even asked someone else for advice. The girl points at the couple, sighing at how wonderful they look. The man was just thinking about how to send Sylvian away when they switched places. The man has a disgusting expression on his face, but on top of all this, the woman's heart is beating as if it is about to jump out. Irene seems to be enjoying the situation. The man wants to close his eyes, but if he does, he'll allow himself to be kissed, so he refuses to accept reality. The prince interrupts the couple at the perfect moment. He was already thinking he'd have to let himself be kissed, but it seems salvation has arrived. It turns out the couple swapped again without any warning. The touch of bare skin temporarily restored their bodies. When the young man returned to his body, he realized the beauty's heart was beating so fast because Sylvian was standing before her. It's hard to believe Pierre's seduction worked after all. If everything had remained as it was, the lady could even have kissed the young man, but she was stopped. Trying to get through to his conscience, the young man says that the man is a selfish person who tries to use others for his own interests. His Highness suddenly brought it up. Everyone knows what's on that scoundrel's mind because he wouldn't just wipe his face with his shirt. To avoid unnecessary lyricism, the girl asked to discuss how they will get back their bodies, which have changed. As soon as the touching of their bodies ended, they returned back into each other's bodies, which wasn't even strange. The boy's heart is pounding and his head is buzzing. There are butterflies in his stomach like a commotion inside. He seems to be thinking about the night they spent together. The hero called Sylvian dirty, but he himself is no better. So grabbing his hand, the lady is about to return to her body. It turns out that they ended up in their places without warning or reason. But if nothing is done, it will be impossible to return back. They'll have to wait a whole week. The lady can't remind him of that day because she doesn't know if Derek will want to spend another night with her. If the heroine says that she won't wait because she hates her friend, she will return home and cry again. Everything was so good then, but somehow everything has changed now. The lady still doesn't like Derek's words, but she doesn't hate him. The guy doesn't care that others don't like him. He seems even accustomed to it, or perhaps it's in his nature to seeing only enemies around him. The heroine really regrets giving that necklace to Eve, so she will try her best to resolve the misunderstanding. The girl doesn't feel any hostility, and that night was also not bad, except for what she was told about her resemblance to a dog. It sounds like a curse word, but the prince meant it as a pet. Waldo is a small dog, and there was no intention of saying anything bad. Even if this is the case, the lady still finds it offensive when people talk about her like that, even if she is compared to a cute animal. He may be glad he's made it clear to my lady that he meant something completely different. But his pulse is racing faster and faster. In any case, everything is fine, so there's no point in tormenting yourself with remorse. Chandler would be happy if they treated her more politely. It turns out that Derek's eyes are free from irritation and hostility and are actually such a beautiful deep blue color. Only 2 days had passed since Liferidge accepted the challenge to inhabit other bodies for 2 whole days. Having occupied it, the maiden led an ordinary life without difficulty. Sometimes the lady worried about what would happen if they didn't return to their bodies. If nothing changed by dinner, the only option left was the last one. The heroine would never use what she had introduced herself as an excuse because the nights spent with Derek were wonderful. The man wanted to know how the fake Chandler was doing, and at that very moment, the servant handed over a letter from Mistress Irene. The young man says he has stomach and lower back pain. This has never happened before, so he only raises more questions. If the whole description is true, then Derek's those days have begun. Everything fell into place quite quickly. The servant asks if he can finish his report. The thought of the man having those days unsettled the lady. As stated earlier, the emperor has some of the high-ranking aristocrats of the Ellison royal family on his side. It turns out that Derek is keeping an eye on the royal family, and although it is obvious the lady did not think that he would dare to send a spy, according to Allegro's report, the man is planning to bring forth the Black Wolf Army, thereby creating a situation that will undermine Elson. The plan was as detailed as the young man's character. It makes my skin crawl to think that the tip of the sword could have been pointed at Chandler. The connection between the tower and the kingdom will soon become clear. Generally speaking, it's clear what's on the man's mind right away. He wants to sever the connection between the two and then destroy them one by one. The idea isn't complicated, but it's not easy to arrange the puppets on both sides. The hero sharpened his blade against those who robbed him of his childhood. Now they move on to the order given to Delit several days ago. Lady Balin has a deep connection to the Mage Tower. There were mages in the company, so gathering information was difficult. It turns out an investigation has already been launched into the Lady A report on the man Killian who lives on Triple Street will be ready soon. This case deserves further investigation, but it's already clear he's a member of the guild's top leadership. The prince is digging into these two. If this continues, the young man will discover that Irene herself is behind Hades. Derek is too much trouble. Looking at her reflection, the lady sighs languidly. Even in the midst of it, he looks stunningly good. The garden in the Crown Prince's palace, where the young man goes for a walk every lunchtime, has a subtle beauty. Perhaps this is how the maiden is influenced by the tastes of the body's owner, but she has never seen anything so amazing before. The scent of roses drives a man crazy. Inhaling it makes his heart beat faster. Chandler's stationery smells just like it. In the distance, the hero notices Balin, who is standing next to one of the roses and carefully sniffing it to inhale its aroma. Cadion appeared behind him, saying that although the girl was his relative, she was quite attractive. If such an elegant woman becomes the ruler's wife in the future, the people will surely be proud. Taking her eyes off the Duke, the maiden turns her gaze to the dress. The corset accentuates every curve of the body to the extreme, but the wearer will find it difficult to move and breathe. Men don't care, so the guy next to him continues to praise the girl. If the woman hadn't fallen to her brother's tricks, she would have become a magician. Derek can spend one night in bed with this beauty if he wants. The Archduke talks about how wonderful her hair is at night, but he's cut off. The other person should be ashamed of the things they continue to say. A person is not a thing to be disposed of. Walking further, the brunette wants to get rid of such company as quickly as possible, restraining himself from hitting, but the lady catches up with him. The greeting is belated, but she says hello anyway. If, according to the original, she's not the one who cast the spell, no one will know whose soul is in the body. The virgin suggests they go sit together in the garden. The lady wants to refuse, but she has a weakness for handsome men and women. His Highness said that if the girl walked in the garden, she would meet the prince, and that is what happened. The girl tried very hard to dress as elegantly as possible to make herself look prettier, but it seems she overdid it. Irene thinks it suits her very well, but she won't say so out loud. Balin is attractive even in Chandler's eyes, but then it's unclear why the man has no reaction. Asking her to turn around, the hero unzips her dress. She's beautiful in any form, but it's not worth enduring such discomfort to please someone else. Getting up from his seat, the brunette says that he is not going to untie it any further, so he asks to tie the corset less tightly. If it were Derek, he would have driven the lady away, but first he pretended to be seduced. Virgo doesn't know whether to tell anyone about this. The lady had experienced female pain before, but this time everything was much worse than before, and it became immediately noticeable. The hero had heard about something similar from his female comrades in arms, but he didn't expect it to be so bad. Sitting and lying down are uncomfortable, so I have to change positions every few minutes. It feels like there's a hole below my waist. The lady borrowed some painkillers from Cedric, but nothing helped. Her body felt heavy as if her organs had been damaged by poison. Irene is the Chandler family's greatest treasure, so she was unlikely to have been poisoned. If there had been such a big commotion in the mansion, word would have spread immediately, but there were no rumors. The last time they started, the man didn't even realize it because the body was in good condition, but this time the feelings were different. It's unclear what Irene is planning and how Killian is involved. When the man returns to his body, he's obligated to send the girl medication. That day, the beauty said that she did not feel hatred, and this made the heart tremble with joy. Everything has changed since the time when she didn't love a man, so she won't reject a new gift like she did with the necklace back then. Even though it hurts the guy, it makes things easier that the girl doesn't have to go through all this. Eve brought the book that the gentleman read every time she has these days, and when she feels so bad that nothing helps. Taking the item, the girl thanks him while wondering in her head what kind of important book this is. The lady is glad that Irene has finally regained consciousness and can sit up normally. She was a little worried when they met the prince at the count's mansion. It all sounds as if the girl was upset every time after meeting the guy and came home to complain. There's no point in getting angry at the maid for now because she's telling the truth. The brunette says Derek is too rude. From the outside, it looks as if nothing is over yet. The lady never managed to forget His Highness as quickly as she would have liked. The lady doesn't hate him, but for a moment she can't understand what's going on inside her. The maid wishes Liferidge were more kind. The father, mother, and brothers are concerned about the way the man is behaving, so they try to set the girl up with Pierre, who is the best option. When everyone sees a lady suffering, you want to give her the best. The man knew his behavior wasn't the best, but he had no intention of correcting it because he was behaving as usual. His father and mother will love the prince even more if he improves a little. For now, His Majesty is losing the battle to Sylvian. Regarding the young man's appearance, everything is completely different. One can understand why half of everything is done in relation to my lady. Sweet words and flowers are enough to start, but this will be difficult for the young man. The Virgin, without realizing it, gave him a hint, and since his condition has improved, it's worth starting to read the book. Opening the pages, the brunette freezes. The lady holds such obscenity in her hands and doesn't even feel guilty. Human joints and flexibility are unlikely to cope with what's depicted on the pages. Closing the book, the heroine asks for it to be taken away. If the lady is going to bed, then the book will go to the place from where it was brought a few minutes ago. Judging by the handwriting, Irene made the item herself. It would be a disgrace if anyone found it, but it's kept in a room where others can access it. The girl would never take a reckless risk. Such things are kept outside the building because there's a secret room used only by Chandler Jr. When they first swapped bodies, there wasn't a single clue left. If the lady goes there, she might discover the girl's entire plan, which she's been hiding. Not even a minute had passed since Eve left, but the book was already gone. She'd hidden it in a secret place in such a short time. The heroine promises herself to search somewhere nearby while the maid warms the hot water bottle. The location is imprinted in the young man's mind from the last time. Apparently, only one room will fit all the parameters that will be described. The second door to the left of Irene. Because of the simple design, the young man thought that there was a servant's quarters there, but everything turned out to be completely different. If you think about it, the man had never seen anyone enter there. So he confidently opened the door, expecting to reveal all the secrets. There's nothing special inside at first glance. It resembles a junk warehouse. It's worth a closer look. Something creaked underfoot, as if there was a secret storage there that had been hidden more securely. The older brother's cry can be heard from the hallway. He came to check on his sister, but she wasn't in bed despite her condition. If people find the girl suspicious, there will be problems. The hero pretended to go out for some fresh air, but as soon as Cedric leaves, he plans to return. Standing up, the lady feels a familiar sensation sweep over her body. It's clear an exchange is about to occur. Smiling, Irene says she went out for some fresh air. Derek seems to have made them switch again. Perhaps one of the couple did something unusual. Finally, everything returned to normal just in time for Chandler herself. If things get bad, the lady will call her brother back. Eve says the lady was out for about 15 to 20 minutes. Irene left when the maid went to heat the hot water bottle after returning from the secret room on the left. The maid doesn't know she and the prince are swapping bodies, and only Killian knows. The private office is crammed full of the fruits of Derek's efforts to break his spell. If Eve had accidentally led the man there, then he would have known everything. And if he asked how the girl knew about it, she would have nothing to answer. When they changed intentionally, the lady took care that he did not go beyond the room. But if they changed unnaturally, then there would be no way to change anything. I didn't even have enough strength to go to the office, let alone take a walk. So in any case, it was best to lie in bed. Eve didn't take the young man into the office, but even if this was his first time seeing secret devices, he could at least handle one or two. This might not work next time, so the woman is hoping for luck. She asks to contact the shoe store she usually goes to. The girl wanted to return the necklace His Highness had given her to her mistress. The pendant appeared in the maid's hands. It turned out that the brunette was not selling the trinket because it was a gift from the prince, which really meant a lot. The lady carried the item with her just in case, so when she saw the girl's condition, she decided it was worth returning. Irene misses His Majesty, so the gift will help calm her down a bit. The redhead has no idea what Derek told the maid. All this time, the heroine felt a little guilty for getting rid of the gift that they had picked out for her. Now the girl sees that the stone's color is the same as her eyes, and the quality of the workmanship is excellent. If she sells it, she could afford 2 mansions in the capital. Derek must really be worried because the lady isn't wearing the thing. He's already built up a lot of ideas in his head. The shoemaker arrived and thanked everyone for coming to him. Even this time, he was followed by an elderly acquaintance. Leaning towards Eve, the girl asked to go to a secret warehouse and put all the documents there to hide them from prying eyes. Meeting Killian's eyes, the lady laughs because it must be hard to disguise herself every time to get to the place. The servant wants to ask something, but the leader turns him to face the wall and casts a silencing spell so that he and Irene can chat. The man starts measuring the leg while they discuss how bored he is and how it is causing him more pain than joy. The young man heard that knee-high boots would be fashionable in the fall, so he reaches his hand higher towards his knee. The boy believes that such shoes would look perfect on a lady who suits absolutely everything she tries on. The girl chuckles and then talks about the tape measure she can use to measure her neck circumference as if it were a veiled threat. It's best not to see each other for a while because the curse has changed. The prince is undermining Killian and is even more capable of commanding the Black Wolf's army. All that remains is to wait for the day when the couple will see each other again. The man recalls being asked to find a way to lift the curse on His Majesty. The girl immediately gets excited about the idea because at this stage, that's the most important thing. It turns out there's a solution. The young man has found a way to lift the curse without the one who cast it in the first place. This reveals Irene's interest. The woman can't believe that something she doesn't know exists. She's been working on this case for years. The girl begs to tell her everything in detail. This could save both lives from being mixed up on a daily basis. A cursed person can die, and if the person doesn't exist, then the spell cast on them doesn't exist. It's all too simple. Clutching Hades' cheeks, the girl reproaches him for deciding to joke at such a crucial moment. In fact, the hero would be glad if the prince died, but he's a tough nut to crack. It will happen one day, but not anytime soon. If the heroine had waited until it was all over, she wouldn't have even tried to act recklessly. She still wants to understand what that method is. The dragon sword is what will truly help in their situation. That's all the servant says. His Highness can use the awakened dragon sword, and then he will be lucky enough to lift the curse that T failed to lift. Hades still jokes because even though Derek awakened the weapon, he can't use it to its full potential. Even children know this. This thing is a legendary sword created in ancient times by a dragon who received magical powers from the gods. To create it, the animal tore out its own ribs. The sword appeared in response to the will of the crown prince who was held hostage. Its mere appearance caused a storm, but the weapon was so deeply embedded that the hero was unable to retrieve it from the ground. The young man became the butt of ridicule among the aristocracy as an heir with only excuses. The object became nothing but a horror. In a sense, it wasn't without its upsides. Magic belongs entirely to the dragon, so its awakening means Liferidge is the chosen one. After the sword awakened, the tower's mages were unable to directly attack the man as they had no right to attack the one who had awakened that very power. There's no way to get it. And even so, the lady needs to know what Killian plans to do with it. If she follows the instructions, the curse can be lifted. Now the pair are head and shoulders above the mages. His Highness can't use the sword, so the lady continues to object. If this were possible, the prince would have fulfilled his duty long ago. But for now, there are no options left. It's still a little easier than finding the Archduke's mage to try another plan. Killian's words make sense because the first option is unrealistic. To draw a weapon, you must cast aside the fear of death and be prepared for it. It's easy to say what kind of person would make such a decision. The girl repeatedly heard the aristocrats laugh. After so many years as a hostage, the man was still trembling for his life, which was strange to them. Judging by the way the young man regrets his life, he's certainly aware that he's the crown prince. Despite appearances, it's actually quite strange because a sword has its own pride. The maiden never understood the reason why the prince did not meet the conditions for awakening the dragon sword. It's best to put this mission on hold for now as it's beyond their capabilities. Rumors have already begun circulating that the tower's leader's son is laying claim to that very weapon. Balak is quite an annoying guy, and his remarks make everyone else cringe. Lady chuckles because he's Killian's older brother. If a man becomes the leader, they'll likely wage war against the Empire again and resort to magic. It's best not to let that happen. The Empire also uses magical items, but those related to military force are strictly prohibited. The country will one day have to turn to magic in the tower because Elson begins to develop more and more. Eve brought documents on the history of imperial costume as her mistress requested. She needs to study everything in detail. The girl thinks that these are papers with clothes, but in fact there is a study about Derek's curse. Handing the box to the man, the girl asks him to look at the last shoes as this will help in completing the work. After the lady has given Hades everything he needs, everything can be finished and you can rest a little before proceeding to phase number 2. A few days later, the day arrived for the girl to dine with the Empress. Derek said that if anything happened, it could be tolerated if the pain remained. The mother asked her daughter to spend a little time with her father upon her return, as he is upset that they have not seen each other much lately. The Count is busy with work, but he'll be able to spare a little time in any case. The woman wishes him a wonderful journey to the palace. The garden at the castle is still wonderful, just like the weather itself, which makes one enjoy such a pleasant day. The lady arrived earlier than she thought, so she plans to take a short walk to the meeting place instead of driving there. At the most inopportune moment, the woman meets Pierre. She doesn't immediately understand how the boy ended up in this area. The young man's sickly appearance makes it clear he's not feeling well. He's apologizing for his rude behavior last time. Apparently, they're talking about that incident at the fountain. The redhead insists everything is fine since it was her own fault she tripped. Sylvian is relieved that there are no more misunderstandings. He can't believe he couldn't sleep because of what happened. To keep the mages under control every year in the Empire, the children of important aristocrats gather in a country house and carry out a suppression. Young men and women gather together. The father confessed his love to the mother right there because she was the true flower of society. Interrupting the flow of his interlocutor's thoughts, the hero asks if she would like to go with him. A man is going to invite a lady on a summer hunt for a magical beast that is already being talked about. In fact, there is nothing special in the fact that an aristocrat invites a maiden, his beloved, to take part in a hunt. She and Pierre have been close for a long time. He wants the heroine to go with him. Not to sleep in the same bed, but because there's no point in it. For the sake of women, young men in their prime will even go so far as to hunt a magical beast boasting of their strength. They all do this to attract the opposite sex. The girl doesn't care about the lack of a partner or the fishing. It would be comfortable if they went with their family, as going with a guy would be nerve-wracking. However, when the vague realization came that Pierre saw a woman in his friend, she could no longer simply accept his proposal. First, we need to figure out how he and Derek switch bodies, and then we can talk about everything else. The girl doesn't dislike Pierre. She's already thought several times that marrying him and spending the last years of her life with him wouldn't be a bad idea. I would like the rest of the time to be completely calm as it should have been from the beginning. As with Lily, a person's appearance and inner world are slightly different, but this does not greatly affect how he behaves. Before Irene begins to see him as a man, she wants to start treating him with awe because she has known him for a long time. Already starting to speak the speech that had arisen in her head, the lady freezes as she sees Derek nearby, who is frowning. The man simply squeezes in the middle as if nothing had happened in order to separate the cute couple from each other as quickly as possible. Bowing, the lady greets the younger luminary of the empire. Without replying, the young man remarks that his acquaintance has arrived early. The heroine had been having a wonderful time chatting with Sylvian, but they were interrupted. The gentleman had arrived only for the views for a stroll. The place is far from where the prince usually hangs out. He's dressed up like a parrot even though he can't stand uncomfortable clothes. The young man seemed more than happy than usual to be back in his body. In that case, they'll see each other a little later. If they don't start moving slowly, they'll be late. The girl rides off in a carriage, leaving them alone. Before doing so, the hero asks if Sylvian is planning to participate in the magical hunt. This year, His Majesty also plans to participate, because no one knows whether this will be the last time or not. The girl heard that the emperor was planning to abdicate the throne soon. Chances are high that this will be the last year the crown prince will be able to leave the imperial palace. You can tell from the blonde's face that he is unhappy with the fact that the young man will be participating in the hunt. The hero smiles, saying that's impossible. His Majesty's presence with them will certainly give the others much more strength. The two of them talk restlessly, but for some reason the beauty's spirits are failing. She tries to slowly walk away. The girl is stopped almost immediately. The prince wants to know who exactly Irene will be going to the event with, and everyone wants her to make a choice. It would be better to go with Derek so that if something happens, we can be nearby. But Pierre stands there with tears in his eyes as if he's about to fall apart. The young man was the first to ask, and if the lady went with His Majesty, it would be too much. Perhaps the best option would be to go with the brothers. They'll all go together, so there's no harm in choosing later. Until that's done, the blonde man leaves. The couple heads back to the palace as it is almost time for the appointed reception. The girl feels better simply because she can delay her answer at least for a while. She's not being pressured, and that's the most important thing. Stopping the prince asks why he wasn't chosen. He knows Irene no longer follows him around, but the problem lies elsewhere. Liefridge isn't sure if the girl can handle it if she has to go with someone else as a partner and they switch bodies. Let's hope nothing happens. The lady is thinking about going with her brothers, if that's possible. Of course. Cedric and Aine will be busy on hunting day. It looks like His Majesty is planning to keep the boys busy. There's a lot going on in the palace, but the hero is being too rude. There's no evidence that they swap bodies because of the maiden. Redhead doesn't even understand why they went along the road without any cart just to walk together. The young man stops and points to the roses around him. This place is the Imperial Palace's secret garden, difficult to find. For a man, Irene is like a flower plucked from a tree. Opening his palm, the young man reveals scattered petals. The brunette slightly misjudged his strength and hesitated. For his interlocutor, on the contrary, this was a new kind of threat which she was considering. Obviously, if the heroine goes with Pierre, he will not let it go, and will decide on more brutal measures before doing anything. The man wanted to say that the beauty looked like a rose, but now he stands there in a depressed mood, hanging his head down. Smiling, the girl points to the necklace. It's the same one she was given a few days ago. It seemed that the jewelry matched the outfit the beauty had chosen for the tea party, so she decided it was worth wearing. The girl thanks her for the wonderful gift, but for some reason the young man simply turns away, refusing to look like a lady at some unpleasant spectacle that he is being forced to witness. There's not much time left, so the hero suggests going for a little walk before they have to go back. The lady is relieved that she doesn't have to talk to the prince just to seduce him. She feels extremely at ease. Stopping, the brunette asks about the beauty's feminine health. He hopes everything is now in perfect order. It seems the hero is not going to ask any more questions, so he simply falls silent and turns away. Diva remembers the letter she wrote about Balin Lyfridge can't believe someone else's hands touched his body. The Archduke was nearby, so she remained reserved and observed etiquette. They retreated to a secluded place to talk. The girl secretly touched His Majesty's body, so Irene untied her corset, which embarrassed her, and then asked her to leave and not bother him with her company. In the eyes of the beauty, the young man was obviously such a scoundrel that he behaved like this. He often told Chandler to get lost. A man may not even notice that he is saying something like this, which is quite offensive, even though it is not meant. Diva was interested in the reaction, so she acted the way she did. She apologizes for what Balin said, what had already been said. Asking the lady to look at him, the boy asks if he started touching another woman when he still had feelings for her. Even though the man caressed the girl's body every night, he wouldn't do the same to every woman he met. He's a fairly decent person. Smiling slightly, the red-haired woman asks for forgiveness, but he is already leaving, asking not to make him out to be someone immoral. According to Derek, it is clear that he is worried about his chastity, which remains unpreserved. The man looks like he'll live his whole life in chaos. It's impossible to contain himself, so the beauty starts laughing. Not understanding what's so funny, the hero assumes that chastity is unimportant. Lady grew up surrounded by beauty, so she abandoned such thoughts long ago. A person can sleep with anyone because he is not an animal with normal instincts that can be controlled. The couple arrived at the castle where servants led them into the dining room, which was still empty, waiting for the owners to arrive. The Empress and Emperor arrived just in time. They apologized for their delay, which was barely noticeable. Bowing her head, the lady greets the sun and moon of the empire. She hopes the couple wasn't too hasty because of the guests. Her Majesty looks much better than at the last banquet, but the lady still doesn't know if everything is all right. The woman snuggles close to her husband, smiling. She seems cheerful, so the last of her doubts are cast aside. During dinner, the heroine felt strange. Everyone around her was trying to start a conversation with her, especially Derek, who was doing nothing but that. Perhaps the young man is being polite because his girlfriend is nearby, or he simply doesn't talk to his family. The redhead realized she should try to diffuse the situation. On the way there, His Majesty showed her the garden, which also included roses. Those flowers are truly wonderful. When the boy's parents first got married, His Majesty planted them himself upon learning of the pregnancy. The prince didn't know about this, but even if you think about it as a child, he had picnics there, which helped him to relax a little. The emperor is also trying to reconstruct in his head the chain of events that took place then. Because the little boy was stung by a bee sitting on the bushes that very day, he screamed that he never wanted to see roses again. It's good that my son has regained his love for flowers. They are truly worth seeing. The king was once stung by a bee, but only while he was eating a honey dessert. The empress notices the necklace and compliments him. It's a gift from Lyfridge, which eases the situation as the woman was a little worried they weren't on good terms. Her Majesty would like them to continue to maintain good relations in the future, which will help their son get back on his feet. The woman promises that she's waiting for them at her palace at any moment. Her hands begin to shake as she speaks, and her eyes dart restlessly from side to side. The next moment, the lady loses consciousness and quickly flies to the floor along with the chair she was sitting on. The king and son crowded around the beauty who remained unconscious. Her condition seemed to have improved rather than worsened. It turns out that Her Majesty fainted due to a chronic illness and not due to poisoning or external factors. Fortunately, her breathing has stabilized, but she will need rest for a while. Her body needs to fully recover. It will be difficult for Frederick, but he promises himself that he will be able to overcome everything, even if it is difficult. Irene is sent back to her place. It's evening and quite late, so this is the logical course of action. If the hero is going to let his girlfriend go, it is best not to show her how worried he is about his mother who has had trouble. The young man had not spoken to her during dinner, but now that an unexpected situation had occurred, he obviously regretted not having spoken to his mother earlier. Even so, the queen loves her son very much, and so it wouldn't hurt to ask the two of them to talk when things get better. After reading The Cursed Emperor, the family's future is already certain. Their majesties have abdicated the throne in favor of Derek and moved to a distant city. The man ascended the throne and never visited his mother and father again. The separated family members yearned for each other their entire lives, but neither could make the first move. The heroine is not going to do anything to reconcile the family, but perhaps it is worth giving a little hint. Only Irene knows the reason why the young man failed to awaken the dragon. It was written in the book. The boy couldn't sacrifice his life. He desperately wanted to live after everything that had happened to him and Elson as a hostage. All the time, the hero wanted to return to his homeland and once again fall into the arms of his mother and father who would accept him. During his dull, hellish life in another country, Derek yearned for the times when he was with his parents. Even so, Liefridge hasn't made the first move, afraid of being abandoned again. Addressing His Highness, the beauty asks if he knows of a flower called verbena. He only knows roses. This plant is lush and beautiful. It grows only in spring but can still be seen in the palace greenhouses. It seems that Her Majesty will be staying in the chamber for a long time. So, during this time, it would be possible to find flowers and give them to the lady. The brunette raises an eyebrow, not understanding whether this is something he should really do for his mother as a sign of reconciliation. The queen's hobby is floriculture, so she'll understand the meaning on her own. As she bids farewell, the heroine wishes the girl good health. Before letting his acquaintance return to the estate, Liefridge asks why she told him about that very plant. It's like a response to the rose the prince recently plucked as a sign of affection. You can think about that a little later. A woman sits on a bed and watches the crimson dawn, which beautifully descends across the entire sky like a blanket. Every time the lady sees something red, she is visited by thoughts of how Frederick was thrown into an even darker, bloodier place. Then another state set a condition. In order to achieve peace, everyone had to ensure that His Highness ended up in the country of Elson. After handing over their son, the couple was required to swear that they would not use the Imperial Guard, which was resistant to magic. The decision was inevitable in order to save lives, but the family later regretted what they did. Fortunately, Frederick returned alive, but everything had changed so much that he was no longer recognizable. The lady abandoned the baby, and now nothing will ever be the same. The son will never be able to forgive his mother for what she did, even though he understands to some extent. Derek sits down next to him, placing his hands on his mother's shoulder as she trembles with tears. She immediately asks how long her son has been there. He had only recently returned and had come specifically to visit the sick woman. It was impossible to leave a loved one unattended. The woman notices beautiful flowers in a vase on the table. They're called verbena, so the heroine immediately recognizes them among thousands. In the language of flowers, this beautiful plant signifies family harmony. The girl begins to cry again, thanking her son for bringing the plant to her right away. His mother's hands are warm, so the boy doesn't even want to leave. Taking back his own hand that was covered, he is surrounded by care. Irene suggested exactly what to bring. As my mother had predicted, she is a very caring and beautiful young lady. It would be a good thing if she wanted to become empress. If the man had shown the maiden the imperial garden a little earlier when she was fluttering around him, something would have definitely changed. Now all that's left is to lament the fate the hero himself has ruined. If only he knew how to be more kind and remember a woman's feelings. The blonde notices her son hesitate, chastising himself. She asks if it's true. He only thinks about that lady because it's right there on his face. Cedric came to meet Chandler. They only see each other on Mondays now, and he looks quite exhausted. Fortunately, Her Majesty's condition has improved, but we still need to return to her castle. First, my brother wants to get some sleep. The young man was completely at his wits' end under the heavy workload. As the Prime Minister's son, he would sooner or later take over, and then there would be even more work to do. The girl can't do anything about it because the man loves his job incredibly much and lives by it. Instead, the lady can only act behind his back. She met again with Hades, who had found a new level of disguise. The heroine has only just arrived, so she apologizes for accidentally disturbing him. To apologize, she must disturb the young man more often. The blonde, as usual, is pushing forward, saying he's really looking forward to the moment when it all happens. He can't stop joking about it. When the hero made this face as a child, he looked pretty cute, but now it's unclear whether anything has changed that dramatically. After ruffling the boy's hair, the lady assures him that he is still as sweet as usual. Nothing has changed. Taking out a map from his pocket, which the servants had given him, the guild leader points his finger at some area. This is the very place where the son of the Archduke and his ex-wife is hidden. They sent him there, never expecting to see him again. Killian doesn't understand why the lady suddenly asked to find out about this man, if in fact, this is not the most important thing in her situation. The maiden must know Cadion's weaknesses. Rumors of the Empress's deteriorating health have begun to spread, so the aristocrats must be very busy. Derek was unable to shake off the curse in the original and, suffering from pain, ascended the throne. The Emperor's line found itself in an extremely precarious position. Perhaps his subordinates abandoned the young king because he had become a tyrant. Later, they rebelled against him along with Cadion. No one could stand to see him destroy the country. Elson soldiers and mages came through the lands of Viscount Alt. Enormous funds were received from Prince Adele. Now, with talk of Derek taking the throne, the aristocrats may begin plotting a rebellion. The first step must be taken before they figure something out. The man was digging under Balin and the Archduke, so it was better for him to share his plans and get help in time. The opportune moment to cut off the higher-ups from their sources of income came after the summer hunt for the magical beast. Before then, it was necessary to speak with a friend and preferably also find the Duke's weak point. Irene asked to find out about Cadion's son because she needed to know in advance whether the boy could be used for her own interests. The hero learned everything he needed to, but almost fell asleep from boredom. The little one is surrounded by a multitude of mages, and it seems he himself is not in his right mind. Even though Killian is the abandoned, illegitimate child of the tower's leader, he is still his son, so ordinary mages will not interfere with him. Hades did a wonderful job, so the lady says she will be eternally grateful to him. When words are spoken, they mean something. Rising from her seat, the heroine says they can get down to business. She believes there's no point in wasting time. The boy needs to catch his breath. Just now, he desperately wanted to kiss the one person he shouldn't have touched. The area where Cadion's son is located is rural people still visit the little boy, and his name is Ed. Looking at him, no one would guess this man was a true descendant of the Duke. The man probably doesn't consider the boy a human being. The woman doesn't know much, but she's certain the guy was sent off to the mountains just to please his second wife. If that's the case, it'll prove there are some problems. Besides everything Hades had conveyed, he also learned that the hero had previously mocked him, using force to make him do what he wanted. It doesn't look like strangers would lay a hand on the young man. The servant is more than certain the Duke sent his subordinates to do his dirty work. All of this happened quite often, both in the past and to this day. It's no secret to those involved. The man's new wife has not yet been able to give birth to a child, so she often starts scandals over another son from a previous marriage, as she is afraid that their relationship will fall apart. To prove to the woman that his intentions remain the same, the young man sends his men to Ed and they do their job. Virgo doesn't know the boy personally, but she's terrified to think about what happens to him almost every day and the conditions in which he lives. I immediately recall the very words when the lady mentioned the boy to two girls at the tea party. It is possible that on that very day, the boy also suffered what was done to him after the woman ran to complain to her husband. Irene can't believe what she's done. The young man gently asks if she'd like to visit the baby. When Killian talked to Ed, he said that he wanted to thank the heroine for completely annoying his parents. If there was danger, they would return immediately. In any case, Hades wouldn't drag his mistress to a place where she could be harmed. Standing in the center of a glittering circle of magic on the floor, the couple is transported. The girl waits to meet the boy so she can help in any way she can. The young man no longer has the strength to fight. He is truly exhausted and lies unconscious after yet another surprise. The couple cast a concealment spell on themselves. Finally, the magic worked and they found themselves in a dark, even eerie place, one they longed to escape. The girl can't believe Ed actually lives in this house. The walls are crumbling and the crows around are eating each other. He's the Duke's own son, and the place seems strange even to visit. According to the official version, the man sent the boy to warmer climates to improve his health. Although security is weak, there are machines present from time to time near the estate, tasked with protecting the exit. The girl is afraid they won't be able to get inside. Killian reassures her, saying he's prepared everything since they won't be standing outside. Managing magical power so that the ground beneath your feet does not disappear is quite a delicate task. Even so, there's no unnecessary touching. The hero doesn't need to go overboard just to demonstrate his hidden talents. The man easily leaps up to the third-story window. They're there right where Ed is being held, suffering so much. The couple is in Cadion's room. It's too dark and scary inside, the bare walls around him unwelcoming. The lady turns from side to side to understand what is happening and where they should go next to meet. The only thing you can notice is the smell of antiseptics and dampness that spreads throughout the room. Irene freezes when she sees a man in the distance. The first thing she notices is his leg, which is bandaged to prevent leakage. The boy gets up from the floor, trying to find the strength to do so, and asks who has arrived. At that very moment, Hades lifts the concealment spell. The lady kneels down gently, placing her palm on the boy's cheek. He's been through a lot over the past few years. The young man seemed to be struggling to speak, but still finding the strength. He asked if they had come to take him away from this terrible place. The blonde man can't see anything, judging by the strange way his eyes dart from side to side. He can't concentrate. If the girl doesn't intend to kill his stepmother and father, then it would be better for her to take the baby with her to safety. It's crazy because Ed genuinely wants revenge. He looks like a madman, but it was other people who did this to him, not himself. Now the lady began to understand why Hades had suggested meeting this man. Everything fell into place quite quickly. The condition is simply terrible. His leg is broken, and judging by the fact that one of them is shorter, the hero was disabled from birth. Moving lower, the man runs his hand past the boy's face, but it becomes clear that his eyes still don't see because there is no reaction. Apparently, the beauty is the social butterfly who angered her kind parents. The girl nods, asking if she was the reason for the beating. A couple doesn't need a reason to beat up a guy, so there's no point in taking the blame. Killian asks for more respect for a lady who's come all this way. The girl most likely came because she needed something too. She has no reason to take the boy if she just wants to see him. The language isn't appropriate for a child, and it's unclear why the Archduke is treating his son this way. Chandler wonders if his friend can cure the boy without his parents' knowledge. It would be nice if the employers didn't know anything either. She could try, but she herself doesn't know where to start. You can use magic to make the boy look beaten, but actually be fine if that helps. The blonde can't believe that people just believe him and take his side, even though he is the son of a man who is committing absurdities. It would be much easier to use the young man in his current state, and in this, he is indeed right. If the faction wants to expose the Duke's relationship with his son, they should leave everything as is. But it is impossible to know what is right because a person chooses his own path. Several days passed. Hades treated Ed well, though he wasn't particularly pleased. All that remained was to cut off the aristocrats' sources of income and continue the hunt with flying colors. In June, there will be a challenging competition for aristocrats. The training center created by His Majesty to identify the talents who will work with Derek is already ready. The Countess enters the room and hands over the documents Aine left behind. They concern the event. The girl asks to leave it to her. No one knows if anything interesting will come of it, but it's still worth a try. When a woman gets on a horse, she feels alive again. It's truly wonderful to ride after so long. Irene credits her father with buying her a pony as a child, which allowed her to learn to ride from an early age. Even in the times when the little girl did not have a horse, she persistently practiced on her brothers or the Count. Mrs. Chandler arrived at the prince's palace. They hadn't seen each other for some time, and she was immediately greeted by a servant. Saying that she came to express words of support to her brother, the maiden hears the Marquis's question about His Majesty and their meeting. Now the Countess is confused and trying to escape Cherville is probably busy, so it's best to move on. In fact, the young man gave the order to comb through the palace in search of the missing documents that Chandler had obtained. Anne had to honestly admit that he'd forgotten his papers at home. Saying goodbye to the man, the lady promises that they'll see each other again soon. Getting his things back, the boy practically jumps for joy. His sister has saved him incredibly. Everything could have gone much better, but the boy managed to cope with the overwhelming pressure that had overwhelmed him. His Highness ordered the missing person to be found. The young man impersonates the prince, who looks at him with a threatening gaze and says that he has almost given up in fear. Ain reaches forward to kiss her sister on the cheek for her help. A familiar voice is heard from the side. It turned out to be Pierre, who somehow ended up here instead of his usual estate. She immediately throws a sheet over herself and the character blushes. The woman apologizes as she didn't know anyone was sleeping. This time, Sylvian didn't undress intentionally. Leaning closer, his brother asks when his friend had ever flirted with his younger sister. There is noise in the room, but a clear voice can be heard behind the door saying that Ain is about to enter the room. Sylvian is shirtless and his brother is completely dumbfounded by the future emperor's voice, so simply opening it isn't the best option. Perfectionist Derek simply cannot witness such a sight, but he was already almost in asking about the documents. The guy seems to be in a bad mood, so he doesn't even react to the beauty. It will be hard for him to look away, even if he doesn't want to. This is how the lady will be able to distract the young man more. So she smiles, saying that they haven't seen each other for a long time. The man appeared to be just as indifferent to people as before, so he slammed the door abruptly. It was difficult even to smile and say hello. Closing the door behind him, the brunette lowers his head and hides his face, which has turned red from the sudden nose-to-nose collision. The prince had clearly not seen his beloved's face up close for a long time, and therefore was even confused and could not utter anything. I can't believe he acted so strangely just because he ran into someone he knew. You can't just accept reality. The girl stood on tiptoe and smiled so sweetly for no apparent reason. The heir couldn't possibly display his emotions so openly. If their faces had been a little closer, Derek's vision would have been blurred, and he would not have seen the flirtatious Fane who was taking off Pierre's shirt. Remembering this scene, the man abruptly turns away and closes his eyes. He doesn't want to imagine what happened next. Opening the door again, the boy notices his friend smoothing Sylvian's hair as if he was the only one with a head. The prince is angry that Pierre isn't ready for the meeting in 2 hours. Ain quietly says he's found the documents and will help get his friend in order. A second later, they both disappeared from the room, closing the door behind them. No one wants to get caught in a man's hot hand. The guy suggests they take a walk while they're alone. Of course, Irene agrees, wondering whether she should mention Countess Adele. Balin is looking for a meeting with Derek again. She saw him heading into the garden, so she's hoping it will work out. Peering out from the bushes, the blonde is focused on the man of her dreams. She mustn't miss her chance. The brunette walks a little forward. He would like to walk beside her, but then he would be staring straight into her face like a fool. His Highness thinks the weather is fine, but thunder rumbles in the distance. The maiden knows the meeting is nearby, but the boy has prepared everything in advance. To hide his anticipation, the young man tenses his facial muscles, showing with all his might that he doesn't care. Looking down, the lady tries to speak, but hesitates. It seems she wants to say something bad. The prince is ready to share the burden. Still realizing that it is impossible to delay any longer, the lady says that she would like to become friends with Countess Adele. She talks about her plans in case they suddenly switch bodies again. This woman gave birth to an actor's child, and everyone knows it. Although she's of aristocratic descent, she's close to the middle class, which is why it happened. The reason the Countess is considered an aristocrat is because of her brothers. She is also said to have excellent business acumen. She's a very passionate person, so she gave birth to a child with an ordinary actor. The man tries to understand why the girl would want to meet him like that. Perhaps the only reason is to befriend some handsome actor. Playing to the crowd, the lady says that if the opportunity arises, she'll be delighted. His Majesty almost fell, but he was just lucky that his body could withstand any vile news. The girl joked, and after that, the man seemed to blossom again. In that case, I'd like to know why he even needs this friendship with someone unknown. The girl was interested in her business management skills, since women who have achieved success in this are rare. I can't believe my friend is trying to deceive the heir himself like this. He still asks what methods will be used. The woman just gave birth, so we could try right after the summer hunt, which is coming up soon. When the heroine returns, the rainy season will begin. That's why the heroine decides to spend a couple of days at Countess Adele's estate under the pretext that a cartwheel has fallen off and ended up in the mud. If they were to switch bodies, the prince would be obligated to help them achieve their goal. If they were courteous to the woman, there might be a reward later. It's strange that a lady would walk in the rain since she hates it. That's exactly what the beauty said last time. Everything has changed because the lady no longer needs to play to seduce His Highness and gain his precious attention. Balin interrupts the conversation mid-sentence. She smiles, saying she didn't expect to meet a junior luminary of the Empire. Istra has become such that they can no longer stand next to each other. Of course, she looks at His Majesty. If he has no further business with the prince, he's about to leave. The blonde doesn't understand why he's so cold to her. A sad expression appears on the brunette's face. He seems displeased about something, or perhaps he's simply not in the mood to talk about what's going on. The lady immediately noticed that last time he had not behaved so contemptuously and had not shown it so openly. The girl can't believe that everything is happening because of the girl standing next to her. Irene ruins everything right there on the spot. Even if this is not the case, the heroine is honestly offended because last time the prince was incredibly gentle, but now something has clearly changed. The Knights of the Black Wolf Army revealed that she is connected to the Tower of Magicians. And even if not men, don't like her, and she only gets on their nerves. The only thing that looks attractive on this woman is the white shoes she has been wearing lately. It seems that these shoes are in fashion because the couple talking seems to be wearing identical ones. The shoes looked 100 times better on Irene. Balin noticed the brunette didn't even bother to look in her direction. Istra doesn't think she can give up so easily when she sees a ton of new opportunities opening up before her. The girl ran forward so quickly that she didn't even answer the Marquis's question about where their ruler was. The young man wasn't found in the palace either. They had to search the garden a little longer because Cherville simply had no other options. The old man didn't just search the bedroom. It's unlikely he just went to bed out of the blue, but he still needed to check. A white shoe lies lying near the open door. No matter how you look at it, it looks a lot like the shoes Mrs. Balin wears. The man groans. It seems His Majesty has brought Madame Balin to bed, which is already astonishing. The lady hopes the rumor will spread, but it won't. The maiden was a trap set by the Archduke. Come to think of it, the future emperor couldn't have done this right before the meeting. It had never happened before, so it shouldn't happen again. Putting the slipper in his pocket, the old man is going to give it to Frederick after the meeting, since he shouldn't be distracted before. The girl wants to go back because she's tired of circling the palace garden. She has no idea what to do next. There's only an hour left before the meeting. It's time to slowly return to prepare, even if the prince is capable of handling everything himself. Sighing, the redhead gives in. She can't even argue, since in this case there aren't many options left. That same feeling washed over them again a second later, and their bodies began to move again. Both stood in shock, unable to understand how this had happened. I can't believe what's happening is real. My chest aches and hurts like when I unknowingly drank 5 cups of coffee as a child. Running to her body, the beauty grabs her hand so that they can turn again, but it seems nothing works. The contact of their heads against each other temporarily returned them to their bodies. It seemed His Highness hadn't slept because his condition was truly terrible. There's not much time left. If they don't switch back within an hour, Irene will have to lead the meeting in the prince's place. This won't work because no matter how hard the lady tried to master Derek's work skills, she wouldn't be able to hold a meeting with officials, which he had been preparing for 6 months. There will be dozens of people there who have seen the guy 100 times already. And even the slightest differences will lead to suspicions that are unnecessary. The only way left to fix the current situation is to return it to normal and try to prevent events. The only thing left for the couple to do is sleep together again. Leaning close to the boy's ear, the girl asks if they can go to the bedroom without being noticed. The girl arrived without any witnesses, and Irene entered through the underground basement so that no one would notice her bright hair. No one knew that there was a secret passage in the palace, but it exists in case you have to leave the place urgently. Be that as it may, the young man was quite careful because there was not a single scratch left on his body after the move. There are about 50 minutes left to fix everything and start all over again. If it doesn't work, the case is lost. They don't have much time left, so the prince is afraid of what might happen. He scoops up the beauty in his arms and carries her to the wall. They've already agreed to swap, so there's no point in asking. We need to make it work quickly. Derek asks for his name while he reaches for his neck. He can't leave marks there, otherwise, people will spend the whole day wondering who left them. The man wants to know if the lady would have thought about who left the marks. He looks quite serious, just as he's determined to do so. The girl is not sure, but she knows that it will be like a nervous breakdown for the whole day, because people will whisper and crowd around. The woman suddenly felt a wave of weakness. If the guy kissed her but didn't leave anything untouched, then everything would be just as it had been before perfect. It must be a matter of mood or atmosphere, but not of the issues that they so actively discuss further. It seems the girl is either in a bad mood or perhaps it's just that what they're doing to her is unbelievable. Her heart is still pounding like crazy. After it was all over, nothing changed. Those for whom this wasn't intended remained in their bodies. They returned for a moment and held hands again. Irene asked His Highness why they hadn't switched back. It's all because the girl can't think calmly about what's happening. She's left with a lot of strange feelings. The guy picks the woman up and sits her down on the table. The conditions are the same for both of them, regardless of how things go from there. They both need to be satisfied for this to be complete. So far, Liferidge hasn't gotten his. It was an excuse to continue, but of course it all worked. The brunette himself can't believe it was true. There are only 15 minutes left, but the guy has more important things to do. First, he puts Chandler to bed, then kisses her forehead, telling her he needs to go. The girl was sleepy only because she was lying down, but in reality, she didn't want to stay in someone else's bedroom like this. As soon as it's all over, the prince promises to return. The man doesn't want to leave his beloved just like that, but they'll talk when she wakes up. The boy seems to regret leaving the lady alone and walking away. But if he doesn't do something like that to others, it means he doesn't like it either. It seems the guy can't stand being alone after spending the night together. Their first time made him think so. That day the beauty took his body, and also for the first time, then simply running away and leaving the handsome man completely alone. All this time, Chandler didn't feel any guilt about using him because Derek gets more benefit from lifting the curse. Now the woman understands that the brunette has feelings for her and she doesn't want to hurt him. She herself would feel betrayed if she knew this was all part of the plan.